When Guqing abandoned me at the altar, I knew he had also been reborn. He said, I can't lie to myself anymore. This time, I won't let her slip away again. In our past life, my sister crashed our wedding in her bridal gown, but Guqing turned her down. Heartbroken, my sister became a war correspondent overseas and later died on assignment. Guqing chose to end his life for her that same day. Driving his car into the river with himself still inside, the dashcam captured his final moments, revealing the years of repressed yet obsessive love he'd harbored for my sister. After my rebirth, watching Guqing and my sister walk away together, I couldn't help but let out a bitter laugh. Little did Guqing know, my sister had always taken pleasure in stealing what was mine. The more I cherished something, the more she desired it, while what I discarded held no appeal for her. 1. At Guqing and my wedding. The MC asked Guqing, at this very moment, what's the one thing you most want to say to your bride? Guqing grabbed the microphone and shouted excitedly, Shintian, I love you. The entire room erupted in uproar. Because I'm not Shintian. Shintian is my younger sister. Right now, she's tiptoeing into the wedding venue in her bridal gown, planning to steal Guqing away. But in our past life, Guqing turned her down. He said he only loved me. Heartbroken after being rejected, Shintian became a war correspondent overseas and died in the line of duty. Upon hearing the news, Guqing committed suicide the same day by driving his car into a river. The dashcam captured his final moments. I regret it so much. Why did I marry Shintang out of obligation? Why didn't I leave with Tian Tian back then? Why did I let her go abroad alone? With her gone, what's the point of my existence? I'm sorry. Tian Tian, I'm coming to be with you now. We'll never be lonely again. Guqing's voice was thick with despair, remorse, and anguish. Every word he said felt like a knife twisting in my heart, tearing me apart. The tragic part was, I was already 8 months pregnant at the time. A week after Guqing's death, Shintian, who had supposedly come back from the dead, shamelessly appeared before me. I never died, just told Guqing a little white lie, never thought he'd take it so seriously. So he loved me that much all along. She stood before me with a victor's poise, looking at me like I was some pathetic joke. Ever since we were kids, she's always loved stealing things from me. She's my father's illegitimate child. When her mother abandoned her at age 10, my father had no choice but to bring her back to the Shin household. After returning to the Shin household, she put on an innocent facade while secretly resenting any advantage I had over her. She'd go to any lengths to possess whatever I owned, whether it was grandparents' affection, father's love, or even my own mother's attention. She wanted it all. The same went for my favorite clothes, dresses, jewelry, and cosmetics. She'd inevitably acquire identical copies. I had a feeling she'd try to steal my boyfriend, but I never thought she'd actually succeed. 2. Guqing. Is it true? Shintian gazed at him with tearful joy, overwhelmed with happiness. It's time I showed some courage for us, Guqing said with unwavering determination. He walked off stage, leaving me alone under the spotlight. He stood before Shintian, gently wiping away her tears, so Guqing could be this tender with others too. Guqing and I met during freshman year. He was a financially struggling student, orphaned with only an elderly grandmother who collected scrap to support his education. I kindly sponsored him. I even accompanied him to take his sick grandmother to the hospital and covered the medical bills. In my past life, Guqing was the one who pursued me first. He said I made him feel the warmth and sunshine of this world. He admitted he wasn't worthy to pursue me now, but feared that years later I'd belong to someone else. That's a risk he couldn't take. Yet he made me a solemn vow to strive for a better life together, swearing he'd rather lose both legs than ever betray me. With my support, Guqing's career skyrocketed after graduation. True to his word, he married me at the peak of his success, but after marriage, I could no longer feel his passion for me. Yet now, Guqing's gaze burned with intensity as he looked at Shintian, his eyes brimming with the joy of having her back. What about my sister? Shintian said hesitantly. She turned her eyes to me. No one noticed the glint of triumph hidden in her eyes. I'll never forget the words she whispered in my ear before pushing me down the stairs to my death. All I did was fake a fall in front of Guqing, then accidentally let him see the wounds I'd inflicted on myself. He was so heartbroken, believing the Shin family had abused me. Did you think he kept his distance all these years because he disliked me? No, he feared losing control and taking me. Do you have any idea how much he suffered holding back? Honestly, I never thought Guqing would actually marry you out of obligation. If I can't take what's yours, then let him die. Neither of us shall have him, now that you know the truth. Sister, you can die too, the title of Shin family's heiress belongs to me alone. I tumbled down the steep staircase, killing both myself and the unborn child. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on my wedding day, so Guqing had been reborn too. 3. Guqing glanced back at me, his eyes devoid of any hesitation or conflict. I can't keep lying to myself, this time, I won't let her slip away again, without giving me a chance to respond. He took Shintian's hand and walked away without looking back, watching Guqing rush toward his so-called love. I curled my lips into a bitter smirk. He never knew Shintian had always snatched what was mine since childhood. The more I cherished something, the more she craved it. What I discarded held no appeal to her. That lavish wedding naturally collapsed before it even began. Being jilted by Guqing became the town's favorite joke. I was the one being laughed at. Nobody dared to criticize Shintian, the homewrecker. I knew Guqing had put out the word in the circle. As the rising star in the industry, no one dared to cross him. I didn't even bother defending myself. Anyway, Guqing will get his comeuppance later. Right now I'm more focused on building my own career. After getting together with Guqing, my whole world revolved around him. I managed his company, handled his social obligations, and willingly stepped back to focus on family once his career stabilized. I actually thought he was worth it. How blind I was. After disappearing for a month, Guqing and Shintian returned to the Shin household. She knelt on the ground, weeping as if her heart would break, as if she's the victim here, when she's the one who stole someone else's husband. When I got home, I could see the helpless expressions on my parents' faces. No matter what, Shintian's outrageous behavior at my wedding would have made any parents furious, but now their anger has slightly subsided because of Shintian's repentant attitude. When Shintian saw me, she completely broke down. Crawling on her knees, she pleaded, "Sis, punish me however you want. Just please don't blame Guqing. This is all my fault. Whatever I want," I confirmed, "whatever you want." Shintian said resolutely, "In my past life, I'd been lenient with Shintian too. It's not just that she's fake, even when she likes the same things I do, I see it as her lacking confidence, desperately trying to copy me. What really matters is that I couldn't be bothered to stoop to her level. The upbringing I've had made me certain Shintian would never outshine me. I still underestimated her. So at that moment, I bent down and slapped Shintian across the face with all my might. The sharp crack of the blow left her completely stunned, before Shintian could react. Guqing shoved me aside roughly, nearly sending me to the ground. He shielded Shintian in his arms and snapped, "Shintang, our issues have nothing to do with her. If you've got a problem, take it out on me." Fine. Without hesitation, I stepped forward and slapped Guqing across the face again. When it comes to scumbags and trashy women, I'll slap them all. 1 or 2, it makes no difference. 4. Guqing was visibly fuming from my blows. He probably never expected someone as gentle as me to act so rough. My parents were completely stunned too. A month after being jilted at the altar, I showed no signs of emotional breakdown at home. If anything, I became more driven. Knowing I never held grudges against my sister, they assumed I'd channeled my grief into motivation, and that was the end of it. The end? How is this possible? Justice may be delayed, but it's never denied. Shintang, we came back to sincerely apologize to you," Guqing said angrily, with unwarranted self-righteousness, as if I should be grateful just because he showed some remorse after wrongdoing. I laughed in sheer disbelief at his shamelessness. "Do you really think I have to accept your apology?" I challenged Guqing. "By that logic, if I murdered your entire family, would a simple sorry make it okay? What's the point of having police, laws, morals, or basic decency then?" My sarcasm left Guqing utterly humiliated. He clearly hadn't expected me to be this ruthless, nor to strip him of all dignity. In the past, I'd always tiptoed around to protect his fragile ego. I knew he was insecure about his background, so I always made sure to uphold his masculine dignity both in private and public. Accustomed to being pampered, he was completely thrown off by my unusual behavior and just stood there dumbfounded, speechless for a good while. Then Shintian spoke up, "Sis, I know you love Guqing deeply and can't accept us being together right now, but love can't be one-sided. We're truly in love. Please give us your blessing. If I withhold my blessing, will you two break up?" I asked Shintian with a smile. "You've never been this unreasonable before. Guqing doesn't love you. You two would never be happy together. You should actually be grateful you're not married yet, that you've avoided real tragedy." Shen Tian's words dripped with false righteousness. Ha! I had to admit, Shen Tian was right. Marrying Gu Qing would have been my tragedy, but does that give her the right to steal someone else's husband? I sneered sarcastically. This is the first time I've heard someone glorify homewrecking as some noble, virtuous act. Shen Tian flushed crimson at my verbal jab. Before she could retort, I fired back. Should I be thanking you? Thank you for humiliating me by crashing my wedding with Gu Qing. Thank you for meddling in our relationship. Thank you for showing me what a worthless scumbag Gu Qing is. Thank you for being that homewrecker. She's not a homewrecker. Gu Qing rushed to defend her. I know you can't accept our breakup right now, but I don't love you. Nothing you say will change my decision to be with Shen Tian. Gu Qing, do you think I'm some kind of desperate fool? I glared at him with utter disdain. What made you believe I'd still have feelings for an irresponsible, cheating, tactless, brainless, and downright filthy man? Do I look like a garbage dump to you? Shen Tang, how could you become like this? Do you have any idea how ugly you're being right now? Gu Qing completely lost his composure, his face twisting in rage. The more you act this way, the more impossible it becomes for me to ever like you again. 5. Well then, I should thank you for your gracious disinterest, I sneered. You. Gu Qing was rendered speechless. His face flushed crimson. Probably never having dreamed I could become so bitterly sarcastic. Shen Tian soothed Gu Qing. Don't be upset. Sis only said those things in the heat of the moment. I'm sure she'll forgive us eventually. Gu Qing took a deep breath to calm himself down. He said, Shen Tang, no matter what, I'm truly grateful for your support back then. To repay you, I genuinely want to be with you and treat you well for the rest of my life. The more I listened, the more bitterly ironic it felt. So what he's saying is, being with me was just an obligation, because I helped him, and this was his only way to repay me, by offering himself. He was emotionally blackmailed. Tang Tang, I've tried, but I'm just not happy with you. I don't want our marriage to become chains that bind us. You deserve better, and I deserve to be with the one I truly love. As he spoke, Gu Qing cast a tender glance at Shen Tian. The two exchanged a sickeningly sweet smile. How revolting. My parents couldn't take it anymore. Gu Qing, Shen Tian, you came back today to make amends for the harm done to Tang Tang. In other words, this isn't the time for your public displays of affection. Here's a card. Gu Qing produced a bank card. I've calculated it. The medical expenses you covered for my grandmother back then totaled about 30,000 yuan. This card holds 3 million, a hundredfold return. You're not losing out. I stared coldly at that bank card. At least I no longer held any expectations for Gu Qing, so the disappointment didn't cut too deep. 3 million is no small sum, but has he forgotten? It was me who helped him land jobs, start his business, and establish himself. Forget 3 million, even his current 30 million net worth came from me. Sis, Gu Qing has done more than enough for you. Anyone else would have just repaid the money with interest. No more than 100 grand, Shen Tian chimed in, stirring the pot. You haven't worked a day since graduation or earned a single penny. Gu Qing's been supporting you all these years. You should be grateful. So this is how you've been describing me to Shen Tian? I asked Gu Qing. Gu Qing's evasive eyes and indirect response spoke volumes. It was tacit admission. He said, Shen Tang, let's part amicably and remain family. Part amicably. When Gu Qing started his business after graduation, I stood by him through every struggle. I drank myself sick to secure deals for him, even endured inappropriate advances from unscrupulous clients, all things he knew full well and once felt deeply ashamed of. In the end, it all boiled down to Shen Tian's dismissive remark about never earning a single cent. I took the bank card. I saw the contemptuous smirk on Shen Tian's face. Gu Qing also let out a sigh of relief. Even if our family isn't poor, 3 million is still no small sum. They were certain I couldn't refuse. I didn't disappoint them. Wishing you a lifetime of happiness. Thanks for your blessing, sis, Shen Tian said politely, though without much genuine joy in her heart. Just like every time before, she took what was mine and always managed to walk away scot-free. She'd grown accustomed to these outcomes. But then, to everyone's surprise, I casually added, trash belongs with trash. 6. Gu Qing and Shen Tian's faces turned ashen with rage. Shen Tian finally snapped. With righteous indignation, she said, sis, you've already taken the money. Don't you think you're being hypocritical by acting this way now? First, this money is rightfully mine. I enunciated each word deliberately. Gu Qing's success today is entirely my doing. I, Shen Tang, made it happen. No amount he gives me could ever be too much. Second, Your affair was your wrongdoing. Yet it left an indelible stain on my life. Compensation is the least I deserve. Finally, I wasted 10 years of my youth on a dog. 3 million. Is that really too much to ask? Shintian was momentarily speechless. Guqing hadn't expected to get the cold shoulder upon arriving home. With a frosty expression, he said, "Anyway, I don't want to dwell on who's right or wrong between us anymore. When were you ever right? Fine. Consider me wrong," Guqing conceded, unable to argue further. "But what's done is done. I've done all I can. If you won't forgive me, so be it. My only hope now is that you won't resent Tian. Direct your anger at me instead. Don't worry, I won't punish myself for your mistakes. Hating you would just be a waste of my life. I'm done wasting my time on them." Guqing will get what's coming to him sooner or later. As for Shintian, crossing paths with Guqing won't end well for her either. Does she really think Guqing is some kind of saint? I ignored them and retreated to my room. Right now, career advancement matters more to me. I'll never be foolish enough to do the work while others take the credit. From then on, I threw myself entirely into my work. I used the 3 million Guqing gave me to set up an online media company. I signed a lot of internet celebrity streamers, created live streaming sales channels, and invested heavily in new media short-form fiction videos. The company grew rapidly. I was so busy that I only got 5 or 6 hours of sleep a night, and I ate every meal on the go. I simply had no time to concern myself with Guqing or Shintian anymore. It wasn't until a former business partner of Guqing's, unable to reach him, called me to ask if he should renew their expiring contract. He still had no idea that Guqing and I had gone our separate ways. I was actually the one who secured that project for Guqing, so they had to come to me. "I won't sign the contract," I said, "but I'm willing to work with Mr. Lin." I told him about my situation with Guqing. Mr. Lin agreed without hesitation, saying he'd only signed with Guqing out of respect for me. He added that Guqing had become completely unreliable, skipping work constantly and being unavailable when needed, which had drawn complaints from multiple partners. Since President Lin put it that way, I won't stand on ceremony. I never touched Guqing's clients out of some humanitarian concern. It simply wasn't worth the resources to poach them. After my rebirth, I knew exactly which markets were ripe for the picking, so why waste effort? But when business comes knocking, you don't turn it away. 7. I began reaching out to Guqing's business partners one by one. Most clients chose to renew with me instead of Guqing when their contracts expired. Yet throughout this period, Guqing remained completely oblivious. This would have been unthinkable in the past. The old Guqing was a workaholic, though occasionally lacking in negotiation finesse. His professional dedication would never have allowed clients to be poached. He's got enough awareness for that. Of course, there's no need to be surprised now. During my occasional downtime, I'd scroll through social media to unwind, only to see Shintian and Guqing traveling across the country every day, living like wandering souls. Shintian would post multiple updates daily, with Guqing liking and commenting on every single one, prompting her to reply each time. The two of them went back and forth, and their moments became a place for them to shamelessly flaunt their affection. Half a year flew by, and when Chinese New Year came around this year, Guqing and Shintian returned from their trip abroad, laden with gifts for their parents. Shintian also brought me a gift. She said, "Sis, I specifically bought you this pink crystal bracelet. It's been blessed, and they say it's great for attracting romance. It's supposed to be really effective. I heard from Mom and Dad that you've been all alone these past 6 months, and Guqing and I are really worried about you." "Don't worry," I said, handing the pink crystal back to Shintian. "I just prefer to have nothing than to settle for less. After all, running into another dog would be too costly." Guqing's face darkened. "I won't be home for dinner. Got some unfinished business to take care of." I tossed the words over my shoulder and headed to change clothes. The sight of them completely killed my appetite. I had just stepped into the bedroom when my phone rang. It was Song Yuan. Song Yuan, a high school classmate of mine, had recently returned to China. We reconnected at the last class reunion and have kept in touch ever since. "As we have some potential work collaborations, are you free tonight? It's Lunar New Year. Aren't you supposed to be having dinner at home?" I chuckled. My extended family won't stop nagging me about marriage. It's unbearable. "Free for dinner tonight." "Fine, perfect timing. I was just looking for a dinner buddy. Song Yuan said he'd pick me up downstairs in 10 minutes. I rushed to change and threw on some makeup in record time, realizing I hadn't done my makeup in ages and it being Lunar New Year. I decided to put in a little extra effort. Walking into the living room, I saw Guqing and Shintian all over each other, sickeningly sweet and borderline nauseating to watch. Sis, dressing up so fancy, got a hot date or something? Shintian asked with deliberate mischief. Guqing's eyes were on me too. Who I see is none of your business, is it? She's just worried about you. Shintian said, feigning annoyance, then deliberately added in front of my parents, Dad, Mom, it's been so long, why is sis still like this? I've been so careful with her. My mom didn't indulge Shintian either. She used to feel sorry for her, believing that the mistakes of one generation shouldn't punish the next. So, when Shintian returned to the Shin family, my mom didn't hold much against her, especially since she was sweet-talked and good at playing the victim. But ever since she snatched Guqing, my mom seemed to have seen through Shintian's true colors. She said bluntly, "You're being careful. Then why were you practically throwing yourself into Guqing's arms right in front of Tang Tang? You're being careful. You practically post 100 WeChat moments every day just to tell Tang Tang how much you and Guqing are in love." Shintian's face turned crimson after what my mom said. She stammered for a long moment before finally saying, "I thought you'd moved on, sis. I'll definitely be more careful next time. Don't bother being careful. Just post whatever you want," I said indifferently. "I'll just enjoy the show." "What do you mean by that?" Shintian asked me, clearly annoyed. "Literally, the higher you jump, the harder you fall." Without another word to Shintian, I walked out. Song Yuan was already waiting downstairs. Seeing me emerge, he hastily stepped out of the car and gallantly opened the door for me. As I got in the car, I could almost feel someone's eyes watching me from upstairs. A cold smirk played on my lips. Seems like things are about to get interesting. 8. Song Yuan and I didn't get back until 10 p.m. after dinner, with a bouquet of flowers in my hands. Normally, Guqing and Shintian would have left by this hour, but tonight they were still here. The moment Shintian saw the champagne roses in my arms, her expression visibly shifted. That same predatory glint flashed in her eyes, the telltale spark of excitement whenever she wanted to take something from me. "Sis, your date's over already?" Shintian asked me. I ignored her, carefully arranging the champagne roses one by one into the vase. "I just saw you leave with a guy. He was really tall. Is he your boyfriend?" Shintian pressed. "What, you're interested too?" I scoffed, a cold smile playing on my lips. "Are you really that fond of my things?" Shintian quickly said. "I'm just worried about you. Guqing and I are together now, and we're getting married soon." "Well, congratulations to you both then." After I finished arranging the flowers, I went back to my room. I had just changed into my pajamas when I heard a knock at the door. I opened it to see Guqing standing there. "You really have a boyfriend now?" Guqing asked me. "Does it concern you?" "I just don't want you to be taken advantage of," Guqing said. "His name is Song Yuan, right? I heard from friends that you've been spending a lot of time with him lately." Guqing and I had been together for so many years, it wasn't surprising that we shared mutual friends, and it was perfectly normal for information to circulate among them. "Yeah, that's right," I admitted it outright. "We even had a candlelight dinner together tonight." "Do you know he has a girlfriend abroad?" Guqing said, agitated. "So what?" I replied, completely unfazed. "I said he has a girlfriend." "He has a girlfriend and he's still with you. What does that make you?" Seeing my indifferent expression, Guqing finally lost his temper. Before I could even open my mouth, he went on another rant. "Shintang, what do you think you are? When did you become like this? Are you just giving up on yourself after breaking up with me? There are so many good men in the world, it's not just me. Why do you have to make yourself look like this? Are you doing this on purpose to make me feel guilty?" Heh. I actually laughed, a genuine laugh born of exasperation. "What are you laughing at?" Guqing was still fuming. "I'm laughing at how there can be such a shameless person in this world." "Shintang, stop pretending. I know you can't let me go. Otherwise, why haven't you dated anyone since we broke up so long ago? Why are you with someone who already has a girlfriend? You're just doing this to get a reaction out of me." Guqing stated with absolute certainty. "So you also think being with a man who has a girlfriend is a shameful thing, don't you?" I didn't want to argue with him anymore. It was pointless. A Phoenix man would never deny his own charm, nor would he ever believe he was inferior to anyone. His pathetic self-esteem forced him into extreme arrogance. That's absolutely disgraceful, Gu Qing declared, his voice firm. What about Shen Tian then? I asked him with a smile. Gu Qing paused, clearly taken aback that I would mock him like that. My situation with Shen Tian is different. How is that different? I found it even funnier. Weren't we in a relationship when you hooked up with her? How is it that when it's you and Shen Tian, you're pursuing true love, but when it's me and Song Yuan, we're some shameful secret? Do you have to cheat at your wedding for it to be considered a grand, moving love story? Gu Qing's face flushed at my words. He gritted his teeth and said, Shen Tang, I'm doing this for your own good. I know very well that Song Yuan is just playing with you. He's going abroad right after the new year. Do you really think there's a future for you too? How would I know if I don't try? What if he would give up going abroad and give up his girlfriend for me? If Shen Tian can do it, why can't I? I deliberately provoked Gu Qing, and also made sure Shen Tian, who was outside the door, could hear me. She had been eavesdropping for a while, but I pretended not to notice. Gu Qing had his back to the door, so there was no way he could have noticed. 9. You just want to prove you're more charming than Shen Tian. To put it simply, you're just resentful that Shen Tian took me away from you. Gu Qing remained supremely confident. I didn't say anything, just stared at Gu Qing. Gu Qing frowned. Why are you looking at me like that? Is there something on my face? Yeah, there is. I nodded. What is it? Gu Qing frantically patted his face, searching. It's a bit gross. Shen Tang, Gu Qing was furious. Since you're so shameless, I see no point in sparing your fragile ego. I sneered, each word cutting like a knife. Song Yuan comes from an elite family. His father's a business tycoon. His mother's a Peking University professor. Everyone in his circle is either wealthy or distinguished, light years ahead of a small-town grind like you. He graduated from top international universities, stands tall and handsome, speaks with wit and grace. But what truly sets him apart is his complete lack of insecurity or arrogance, that effortless ease with life you'll never achieve in a million years. With someone that extraordinary, what makes you think I'd still be hung up on you? Did I lose my damn mind or get hit by a door? I watched Gu Cheng's face turn green as I spoke. Don't ever show your face around me again, I said, enunciating each word. You're an eyesore, Shen Tang. Remember what you just said. You'd better not regret it. Gu Cheng was furious. He spat out a final remark and stormed off. I clearly saw Shen Tian at the door, but I didn't stop for a second. Shen Tian glanced at me, as if she had something to say, but in the end, she gritted her teeth and went after Gu Qing. Only after that, Shen Tian started coming home frequently. She no longer traveled everywhere with Gu Qing, and she subtly started asking my parents about me, eventually learning that Song Yuan and I were growing closer. On my birthday, I deliberately called my mom to tell her I'd be having dinner out with Song Yuan and wouldn't be coming home. I told my mom the exact time and place we'd be eating. Sure enough, at 6:30 p.m. I unexpectedly ran into Gu Qing and Shen Tian at the restaurant. They were arm in arm, so were Song Yuan and I. I saw Gu Cheng's eyes fixed on the spot right next to Song Yuan, where I was standing arm in arm, so was Shen Tian, but Shen Tian's gaze was more focused on Song Yuan, sizing him up and down, her eyes gleaming. Hey sis, what a coincidence, let's grab lunch together, Shen Tian initiated cheerfully. Not a good time. I declined outright and immediately pulled Song Yuan toward our reserved table. Throughout the meal, I could occasionally sense Gu Qing and Shen Tian's gazes, but deliberately ignored them. Halfway through dinner, Song Yuan gave me a surprise. He sat at the piano in the elegant restaurant, playing beautiful music for my birthday, captivating everyone's attention. He even publicly presented me with flowers and expensive jewelry, drawing envious glances from many girls, including Shen Tian. I saw the predatory look in her eyes, and I could no longer suppress the longing within me. So, when Song Yuan got up to go to the restroom, Shen Tian followed him. The moment Shen Tian left, Gu Qing immediately walked over to me. 10. Shen Tang, are you serious? Are you really going to be Song Yuan's mistress? Gu Qing said, his face full of disdain. Don't put it so harshly, I replied, unruffled. Song Yuan and I are truly in love. You're really not the Shen Tang I once knew. Does it matter if I'm the Shen Tang you know? I said indifferently. To me, you're just an insignificant person. Why would I care what you think of me? Shen Tang, I told you before, don't show your face around me. You're an eyesore. With that, I got up and headed straight for the restroom. Gu Qing followed me. Then, as we walked down the restroom hallway, we saw Shen Tian leaning into Song Yuan's arms. "Thank you, Song Yuan. I would have fallen if it weren't for you." Shen Tian feigned panic, but anyone with eyes could see she was deliberately pressing herself against Song Yuan. I saw Gu Cheng's face turn as black as coal. He probably felt a sense of déjà vu too, didn't he? Wasn't this exactly how Shen Tian seduced Gu Cheng back then? Song Yuan steadied her. Shen Tian then pretended to twist her ankle again, throwing herself back into Song Yuan's arms, clinging tightly to him, and letting out a whimper. "Oh, it hurts so much, what's wrong?" Song Yuan asked. Concerned, "I think I twisted my ankle, I can't walk. Do you need me to take a look?" Song Yuan asked. "Wouldn't that be too much trouble for you? And what if my sister sees us and gets the wrong idea? Aren't you afraid of being misunderstood?" Song Yuan whispered seductively in Shen Tian's ear. "Isn't this little act of yours just to tempt me? I would never do such a thing." Yet her body instinctively leaned closer to Song Yuan as she protested, seizing the moment. Song Yuan pulled Shen Tian into an embrace. "Your sister mentioned you're getting married soon," he teased. "So why are you still being such a tease?" "Who said I'm getting married? How could I possibly marry Gu Cheng?" Shen Tian snuggled into Song Yuan's arms. "I don't like him at all. He's just a gold digger, completely unworthy of me. I only stayed with him because I was afraid he couldn't handle a breakup." "Oh really? But I heard you snatched Gu Cheng away from your sister's wedding ceremony back then," Song Yuan teased, "falling for someone else so quickly. Or is it that you just have a thing for your sister's men? Now that your sister doesn't want him, you don't either." "That's not it at all," Shen Tian denied. "I just genuinely like you. Tell me honestly, do you have a thing for your sister's men?" Song Yuan lifted Shen Tian's chin. "Anyway, your sister and I were just messing around. But I like honest women." Shen Tian seemed desperate to snatch Song Yuan from me, so she admitted, "Yes, I've always loved taking things from her since we were kids. Why should she get to enjoy everything the Shen family gave her so naturally when I had nothing growing up? It's not fair." So I swore, "Anything my sister has, I want it, including men." "Shen Tian, are you with me just because I'm your sister's boyfriend, and not because you actually like me?" Gu Cheng finally couldn't take it anymore and roared at them. 11. Shen Tian flinched. She didn't expect Gu Cheng and I would be here too. She quickly and flusteredly said, "No, it's not what you think. I was just helping my sister test Song Yuan, to see if he was truly sincere about her." "Oh, come on." Song Yuan exposed Shen Tian. "The way you were practically throwing yourself into my arms just now, as if you wanted to melt into me, and constantly rubbing against me. You were practically ready to strip right there and then." "I did not." Song Yuan didn't say much. He left Shen Tian's side and walked up to me. "Old classmate, how did the mission go?" I nodded with a smile. "I'll apologize to your girlfriend later. Her boyfriend's body was, defiled because of me." "No need. She absolutely despises green tea bitches and fully supports me helping you. I'll treat her to dinner abroad sometime. It's a deal." Song Yuan and I left. Behind me, I could almost hear Gu Cheng's desperate roar. "Shen Tian, I'm going to kill you. Do you have any idea how much I've sacrificed for you? How could you do this to me?" Shen Tian was also screaming. "Gu Cheng, let go of me, you lunatic. It's your own fault for falling for me. You're just too foolish. Now that everything's out in the open, I'm done playing with you. Let's break up." I wouldn't even glance at anything Shen Tang doesn't care for. It makes me sick just to look at it. "Let go of me." I didn't turn around to watch their spectacle. What's so interesting about a dog-eat-dog fight? But I have to admit, there was a definite sense of vengeful satisfaction deep down. Later, I heard that Gu Cheng and Shen Tian ended up at the police station that day. Both of them were bruised and battered, which was quite undignified. After that, I heard that Gu Cheng's company ran into serious trouble, and he was deep in debt, on the verge of bankruptcy. Of course, none of that mattered to me. Gu Cheng was an outsider. As for Shen Tian, my parents' tolerance for her reached its limit because of her repeated attempts to seduce my boyfriend. They completely cut ties with her and kicked her out. I thought I'd never have anything to do with either of them again, but I never expected Gu Cheng to have the nerve to come see me. He waited for me outside the company after work. Gu Cheng looked like he'd lost a ton of weight since I last saw him a few months ago. He seemed completely dejected. "Of course, I'm well aware of the bind he's in right now. If he can't secure another loan, his company is going under," he said. /Tang Tang, I was wrong. I never imagined Shintian would be this kind of person, I watched him with a detached amusement, a slight smile playing on my lips. He was nothing more than a joke to me. Then, his voice thick with sorrow, he pleaded. Shintian tricked me, I regret it so much. I just realized now that you're the one I truly love. Can we start over? I swear, I will never betray you again. If I do, I'll cut off my own legs. I scoffed. You said you'd cut off your own legs if you betrayed me before, and yet, here you are, still with all your limbs. Are you a centipede or a crab, with so many legs to spare? Guqing was utterly mortified by my words. Cut the act. I'm not going to co-sign a loan for you at the bank. Every second I spend on you is a waste of my life. I didn't come here for you to help me with a loan. I've truly realized that you're the one I love. Honestly, I was jealous when you were with Song Yuan, but I was too afraid to admit it, afraid you'd laugh at me, and now you're not afraid. I'm more afraid of losing you than of you laughing at me. Ugh, I couldn't help but gag. That's truly disgusting, Guqing. His face pale and eyes red-rimmed, asked me, Tang Tang. Do you really not forgive me? Weren't you and Song Yuan just putting on a show to expose Shintian, so I'd see her true colors and we could get back together? I really couldn't help but laugh again. I didn't waste any more time with him and just said, Guqing, you're not the only one who's been reborn. 12. Guqing was stunned. In our past life, when you took your own life for Shintian, did you ever think about me? Pregnant with your child, what reason do you think I have to forgive you? Let alone love you. Everything I've done is purely for revenge, I said coldly, for myself, and for the child I never got to have. Tang Tang, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. Guqing panicked, reaching for me in distress. I pulled away. He kept muttering, I was wrong, terribly wrong. How could I abandon you, abandon our child, for a woman like that? Tang Tang, I found it annoying, so I called over security. Get him out of here. Don't let him set foot in this place ever again. Tang Tang. Guqing was restrained by the security guards, but his eyes remained fixed on me, filled with deep regret. To me, it was utterly ridiculous. If only I had known then what I know now. I left without a word, and never let Guqing see me again. I blocked his calls and ignored all unknown numbers. He waited for me at the company, then downstairs at my place. I had the security guards kick him out, and even called the police, completely cutting off any chance of Guqing bothering me again. Just when I had completely forgotten about these people, Shintian suddenly came looking for me. She shamelessly demanded money from me, threatening to expose how my family kicked her out if I didn't pay, aiming to ruin my reputation and that of the entire Shin family. I immediately sent her the video of her seducing Song Yuan. I knew all along she'd pull a stunt like this once she was desperate. Shintian has gone mad. As I was driving home from work, Shintian recklessly swerved her car directly into my path. Just then, another car came out of nowhere and slammed into Shintian's vehicle, sending it flying. She's currently walking cautiously into the wedding venue in her bridal gown, intending to snatch Guqing away. I got out of my car, my heart pounding. Shintian's car was completely mangled, and she was trapped inside, bloody and motionless. The other car wasn't in much better shape. Guqing was covered in blood in the driver's seat, but his eyes were open, as if he was trying with all his might to see me clearly. I saw his lips move, as if he was saying, I'm sorry, it's no use. I shook my head, refusing his apology. Even if Guqing dies, he'd still be atoning for our dead child. I'll never forgive him for what he did. Soon, the police arrived at the scene. Shintian died on the spot. Guqing became a vegetable after resuscitation and remained bedridden indefinitely. I never went back to the hospital to see him, because Guqing no longer existed in my world. After all, my life had already moved on. The end. Story 2. In our final semester of high school, the billionaire's daughter confessed to her childhood sweetheart. He turned her down and publicly declared his love for me, the girl who'd always adored him. Believing his feelings were genuine, I followed him through every reckless escapade until my grades plummeted, dethroning me from academic royalty. At graduation, he went official with the billionaire's daughter, who'd secured early admission to an elite university. I overheard him sweet-talking her while badmouthing me. I read her diary. She's been obsessed with me for over a decade. Just another pathetic simp. Who'd ever want someone like that? The only reason I'm with her is to make her give up that guaranteed admission spot for you. I promised your parents I wouldn't ruin your academic future. How else would they let you marry me? After dying in a daze from that car accident, I woke up reliving the day my boyfriend first confessed his feelings. He held up the flowers with tender affection, declaring his love for me. I slapped him across the face. 1. Shinzinen confessed his feelings to me, right after noon dismissal. When the schoolyard was packed with students, he suddenly came charging out. He scooped rose petals from his pocket, scattered them on the ground, then knelt on one knee holding a bouquet of baby's breath to confess, Xing, I love you, will you be my girlfriend? There he knelt amidst crimson petals, the bouquet held high. The classmates rarely got to witness such drama during their stressful high school days. One by one, they all started egging us on. His loving gaze only sent chills down my spine. Had I not been reborn a month ago, I might have actually fallen for his tender facade. We were both orphans who grew up in the same institution. We studied together, worked odd jobs to make ends meet, clinging to each other for warmth through hard times. In my past life, I'd already fallen for him. I eagerly accepted his confession, declaring with conviction under our teacher's disapproving gaze that we'd stay together forever. After that, he started skipping class with me. He'd pass me secret notes during lessons. He even said he'd make me experience a woman's pleasure before graduation. My grades kept plummeting, yet whenever I tried to improve, he'd coincidentally pull me back down harder. But back then, I believed love could sustain me, completely ignoring my teacher's warnings. I even started fantasizing about marrying him right after graduation. Looking back now, I was hopelessly stupid back then. After graduation, Shinzinen did go public with his relationship, just not with me. It was Gu Jiaojiao, the heiress of Liuqing's richest family, who'd once confessed to him. The moment I saw their social media post, I rushed to confront him, only to overhear their conversation at the door. The two were discussing engagement plans. When mentioning me, Shinzinen's tone dripped with undisguised contempt. That Luoxing, just my pathetic lapdog. I only dated her to keep you focused on studies, to show you what happens to puppy love fools. He chuckled and pulled Gu Jiaojiao into an embrace. Who'd actually like that clingy type? Just some casual fun, only she'd take it seriously. But her downfall did knock some sense into you, got you into that elite school. At least she was good for something. I promised your parents I wouldn't disrupt your studies. How else would they agree to let me marry their precious daughter? Pouting playfully, Gu Jiaojiao asked, you two were childhood sweethearts, and after dating for half a year, she must still hold some place in your heart, right? He smirked mockingly. Never. I don't know how I walked away. At that moment, I didn't even have the courage to push open the door and slap him. When I came to my senses, I'd already been run over by a truck, my body racked with excruciating pain. The only thought in my mind was how I'd failed to slap that bastard to death back then. So this time, as I watched Shinzinen kneeling before me, gripping my hand with his greasy fingers and preparing to kiss my knuckles, my hand jerked instinctively. That long overdue slap finally landed across his face, transcending time and space. Stunned by the blow, he forced a strained smile. Xing, are you, perhaps too nervous? As he spoke, he shoved the bouquet into my arms and moved in for a hug. I kicked him in the groin and immediately followed up with a backhanded slap. Looking down at him curled on the ground, my expression turned icy. I don't like you and won't accept you. Stay away from me from now on. I've been keeping my distance from you all month. Why can't you take the hint? I looked around with disdain and said, everyone, just leave. Shinzinen, who had been brimming with confidence about his confession, froze on the spot. Even the surrounding classmates were stunned. After all, everyone knew I used to have a crush on Shinzinen, always following him around like a puppy. Though I'd been keeping my distance from them this past month, going solo all the time, they just assumed we'd had a lover's quarrel. Even if it's a rejection, you didn't have to be so brutally harsh. Shinzinen scrambled up from the ground, his face dark as thunder. He glared at me viciously. Luoxing, have I spoiled you too much? Do you really think you can manipulate me? Let me make this clear. I confess to you out of courtesy because you're a girl. Turn me down now, and there won't be a next time. Who else would want an orphan like you anyway? His face was brimming with arrogance as he spoke, even flashing a hint of smugness while showing off to me. I already know you like me, just apologize now, and I'll pretend nothing ever happened. Then he stood there with unwavering confidence, waiting for my apology. After all, in all those years before this, we'd never had such a serious argument, even when he forcibly brought Gu Jiaojiao, the transfer student in senior year, into our social circle. I just silently sulked for a day. The next day, I was the first to extend an olive branch. I scoffed coldly. Did you catch some delusional disease? When did you become this narcissistic? We're both orphans, but we're nothing alike. You've got no looks, no grades. Do you really think the top student would fall for a hopeless loser like you? A mocking glint flashed in my sharp eyes. You think you're worthy? The taunt instantly pierced Shinzinen's fragile ego. Nothing infuriated him more than people mocking his flaws. But he's got way too many flaws. This guy's like a walking landmine. You never know what random comment might set him off. All these years I've been tiptoeing around his fragile ego, but not anymore. He looked utterly humiliated, his whole body trembling with rage. His finger trembled as he pointed at me. How dare you humiliate me like this? A dark glint flashed in his eyes. Playing hard to get. If your diary hadn't spelled out your feelings for me, why would I ever confess to someone as desperate as you? He let out a cold laugh, adopting a patronizing tone. Don't think I don't know what's written in that pink notebook buried deep in your desk. I've seen it all along. You've had a crush on me since we were kids, haven't you? Following me around like some lovesick puppy every day. Even spending your hard-earned money on me. You're seriously pathetic. Watching his confession crash and burn, he started hurling every vile insult imaginable at me, desperately trying to salvage what little remained of his shattered pride. But did I really look like I'd give him that satisfaction? My eyes welled up as I saw the approaching teacher, biting my lip hard, my gaze burned with defiance. What's going on here? Why aren't you all at lunch? The teacher's angry shout came from behind, sending timid classmates scattering like startled birds. A few bold onlookers grinned and told the teacher they weren't hungry. Meanwhile, I barged straight into the classroom and grabbed a pink-covered notebook. By the time I stepped out, my classmates had already given the teacher a quick rundown of what happened. I've always been the well-behaved type at school, never stepped out of line, so the teacher decided to hear my side of the story first. My hands trembled as I raised the notebook high, glaring at Shinzinen across from me with burning resentment. This is the diary you mentioned. The one you claimed was filled with my secret crush on you. Shinzinen smirked confidently. That's the one. There's even a page covered with my name. Isn't this proof enough that you have a crush on me? As the words left his mouth, he looked at the teacher with burning intensity. Teacher, I'm not lying. She totally has feelings for me. It's even affecting my studies now. I only confessed to her today because I had no choice. What if she keeps harassing me otherwise? He spoke with such sincerity that even the teacher was almost convinced. Luosheng, what on earth is going on? With trembling hands, I opened the notebook as everyone around watched curiously. Shinzinen waited eagerly for the crowd's uproar and the look of devastation on my face. But there was nothing, because everyone around was already looking back with disdain. What nonsense, that's completely untrue. A guy in our class shot Shinzinen a disgusted look. Are you actually delusional, thinking everyone likes you? The teacher sighed with a hint of disgust in her expression. Shin, confidence is good, but your priority now should be studying. Stop causing trouble and distracting Luosheng from her work. Do you call this a love diary? It's clearly an error correction notebook. Shinzinen's face froze as he rushed forward and snatched the notebook from my hands. His face turned deathly pale the moment he saw the densely packed wrong answers written on the page. This can't be. Absolutely impossible. These were supposed to be her secret diary entries about having a crush on me. He glared at me with a face contorted by overwhelming emotion, demanding, "Where's the diary? Did you hide it from me?" Before I could react, teachers and classmates around us had already pulled us apart. I excel academically, have good looks, and a pleasant personality. By any measure, I'm far more popular than that hot-tempered thunder god. The teachers shielded me behind them, glaring sharply at Shinzinen. Mr. Shen, this ends here. If I catch you harassing Luosheng again, I'll recommend your expulsion to the school. The scholarships and study opportunities the school fought so hard to secure for you weren't meant for harassing good students. The teacher's blunt words turned Shinzinen's face ashen. With a flush of humiliated anger creeping up his neck, he clenched his fists so tightly they shook, glaring at me with murderous intensity like he wanted to skin me alive. But under the teacher's withering gaze, he reluctantly lowered his head. I'm sorry, teacher, I was wrong today. I apologized to Luosheng. This won't happen again. I watched his retreating figure with a cold smirk. Some people always think their plans are foolproof. Unfortunately for them, I've been reborn. For a whole month already. A month is more than enough time to accomplish plenty, like burning that diary from my past life that dragged me into the abyss, replacing it with the mistake notebook I'd prepared, too. The incident spread like wildfire through the grapevine. Thanks to those gossip mongers who witnessed it, Everyone started calling Shinzinen Narcissus bro. They said he was a toad lusting after a swan's flesh. How dare someone like him fantasize about a top student like me having a crush on him for years. He was so humiliated that he skipped class for days. When he finally showed up at school again, he was already dating Gu Jiajiao. How did I find out about this? Because on Shinzinen's first day back, both of them got called into the teacher's office. I curiously asked my deskmate what had happened. The girl grabbed my hand excitedly and started gossiping. Xing, I had no one to spill the tea with when you were at the competition this morning. Guess what? They're officially a couple now. And get this, Jiajiao confessed first. The whole scene was so cringy, I swear it was even cheesier than when Mr. Narcissist professed his love to you, Mr. Narcissist got so emotional he straight up pulled Jiajiao into a dramatic kiss right then and there. The teacher literally fainted from rage and is still on oxygen at the hospital. The department chair had to drag those two lovebirds to the office. She clicked her tongue twice, saying, "Damn, that's impressive. It's been ages since I've seen such textbook-grade insanity. What else can I say? Classic Narcissus over here. Color me impressed." I stood there dumbfounded. In my past life, Shinzinen had always maintained this image of icy composure around me. The only time he ever made a move was when he tried to initiate me into adulthood right before our college entrance exams. He was usually ice-cold toward me, so that single moment of tenderness completely swept me off my feet. At this thought, I secretly slapped myself across the face, knocking all that lovesick nonsense from my past life out of my head. As school was about to end, the teacher finally released them from the office, with curious classmates craning their necks to look. To everyone's surprise, the moment they stepped out, they immediately held hands. They even waved at classmates while passing by, acting like they were walking the red carpet. Everyone nodded with polite smiles, then immediately turned to whisper, "Jesus, these two idiots actually think they're hot shit. This is hilarious. Can't wait to see how this plays out. I hereby declare them our campus clowns." They remained blissfully unaware of how ridiculous they looked. As Shinzinen passed by me, he shot me a smug glance while clutching Gu Jiajiao tightly in his arms. "Having regrets now?" With a dramatic hair flip reminiscent of those tacky emo influencers, he sneered, "Had you said yes back then, you'd be the one enjoying all my love right now." I recoiled several steps, desperate to avoid their toxic aura. Hard pass. "May you two live happily ever after, preferably with 8 babies in one go." Gu Jiajia simpered against Shin's chest, throwing me a triumphant look. "Save your sarcasm, you're just jealous I won brother Shin's heart. Too late for regrets now." As if to make a statement, she grabbed Shinzinen's hand and planted a wet, smacking kiss on it. When they pulled apart, strands of saliva still connected them. The crowd instantly erupted in shrieks. "Holy shit, my eyes, goddamn my fucking eyes. My eyes, my eyes." But they mistook it for the whimpers of a lovelorn singleton getting third-wheeled. Watching me cringe, they strutted away triumphantly. Truth is, I was just dying of second-hand embarrassment. Honestly, if they stay here any longer, I won't need to buy a house. I'll have dug myself a basement out of sheer embarrassment. My toes just excavated an entire Disney castle from cringe. My classmates gave me these loaded looks. "Luoxing, you're actually childhood friends with someone like that?" I shook my head decisively. "Never met him. We just happened to grow up in the same orphanage." My deskmate looked at me hesitantly. "But you said earlier." I glared at them. "Don't ask. Keep asking, and he'll become your childhood sweetheart." My deskmate immediately shut up. During the long break, he gave Gu Jiajiao a bouquet of flowers. Passing classmates shot them amused glances. Gu Jiajiao mistook them for looks of envy. With her head held high like a proud swan, she accepted the bouquet. The couple embraced sweetly before everyone. The furious teacher scowled in disgust as they walked past the couple. It was clear no teacher cared to discipline them anymore, yet the pair seemed to take this as the teachers endorsing their romance. They began flaunting their affection even more openly. Just after class, I was about to head to the school library with my books for some quiet study time. When I turned around, I saw 2 people walking toward me in an awkward embrace. Shinzinen had his arm around Gu Jiajia's waist, yet she insisted on linking arms with him. I couldn't help but burst out laughing at the sight. Seeing me smile, Shinzinen lifted his noble head and strode to my side. With a disdainful glance at the books in my arms, he sneered, "Told you you're just a bookworm. What's the point of being book smart? You'll still end up marrying an outstanding man like me anyway." He gave a cold laugh. "This world still belongs to men. Women should just focus on their natural duty of bearing children. Stop fantasizing about women holding up half the sky. That's utterly delusional. I shot him a derisive glance while feigning a wounded expression before turning on my heel. Another second in his company and I'd catch his stupidity like some contagious disease. Let them keep flaunting their love and acting crazy. I've got college entrance exams to focus on. Can't afford to have my IQ dragged down by him. The two behind me burst into laughter, clearly convinced I still had lingering feelings for Shinzinen. What puzzles me is why they can't just stay obsessed with each other. Must they really drag me into their little game? Shinzinen strode over, took one look at my distressed expression, and smirked triumphantly. I knew you still had feelings for me. Who exactly were you trying to impress with that aloof act of yours? Serves you right for playing hard to get and failing, as punishment. You'll just have to watch me and Jiao Jiao live happily ever after. He planted a loud, smacking kiss on Gu Jiaojiao's cheek. The girl covered her blushing face with her hands, then shot me a defiant look. Brother Shin belongs to me now. Back off, I'm warning you. I can give him things you'll never be able to. After all, I'm the heir to my family's corporation. I stubbornly refused to glance their way, terrified that if I saw their expressions, I wouldn't be able to hold back my laughter for another second. She covered her face and hurried away. In the following days, those two became even more insufferably smug. Between dealing with them and preparing for college entrance exams, I was completely fed up. My frustration must have shown on my face, but they completely misread the situation. That day, the inseparable pair suddenly went their separate ways. Shinzinen suddenly came to find me this morning and mysteriously pulled me aside. Our classmates watched curiously, crowding by the doorway trying to eavesdrop on our conversation. My desk mate even secretly slipped a voice recorder into my pocket. She winked at me and whispered, "I bought this recorder just to catch your gossip, cost me a pretty penny too." I rolled my eyes at her and followed Shinzinen out. In the hallway, Shinzinen put on an affectionate act and tried to hold my hand. Seeing my frown, he awkwardly withdrew his hand. "I'll give you one chance. Just apologize to me publicly and admit you like me. The reason you rejected my confession was just because you're shy. Do this, and I'll give you another chance. I'll cut ties with Gu Jiaojiao." I let out a stunned huh. Waves of commotion kept rolling in from the classroom behind us. I rubbed my throbbing temples. "Aren't you worried about pissing off Gu Jiaojiao? Her family's loaded, and she's set to take over their company after graduation." Sure enough. Hesitation flickered across Shinzinen's face. Her eyes welled up with emotion as she looked at me. "I knew you still loved me. You're being so considerate of me. Don't worry, I'll handle this matter properly." Gritting his teeth with a hint of guilt, he said, "Even if I can't give you an official status, just say you love me and apologize, and I'll have no problem making you my mistress. I'll treat you both equally. Maybe even favor you more since I can't give you a proper public standing." Gagging noises erupted from classmates behind us. "If this keeps going, I'll become the punchline at every single class reunion from now on." I quickly cut him off. "Let's just drop it. You and your precious Gu Jiaojiao can stay together forever." When I hurried back to class, sure enough, my classmates greeted me with sarcastic remarks, mimicking that pink creature's mannerisms. They spread their hands and drawled, "If it isn't our narcissist's little sweetheart, my love for you both is absolutely equal." Their teasing made me flush crimson, and I let out a deep sigh. "Stop it already. I'm completely fed up with him." The classmates around us nodded in emphatic agreement. A few guys even thumped their chests and promised, "Don't worry, if he bothers you again, we'll chase him off for you." Just when I thought their provocation would end here, Gu Jiaojiao showed up at my doorstep that afternoon. My desk mate sighed and resignedly slipped the same recorder into my pocket, giving me another knowing wink. I walked out in despair, staring at Gu Jiaojiao with dead fish eyes. Unfazed, she held her head high and looked down on me with the same condescending gaze as before. I cut her off mid-sentence, pulled out the voice recorder from my pocket, and played it for her. Her expression didn't change one bit after listening. If anything, she looked even more smug, blushing furiously. She gave me a once-over with a critical eye. "I can't imagine what Brother Shin sees in someone as flat-chested and shapeless as you. Guess what? We've already given each other our firsts. You've missed your chance," she declared with pride. "I'm his first and only woman, his salvation in this lifetime." He said even if he's with you, he'll still consider my feelings. You'll only ever be his mistress. When the time comes, you'll just be a servant under me. Know your place. I stared at her in stunned silence. Who knew this recording would be completely useless against her? The Qing dynasty's long gone. Why hasn't this bastard turned to dust yet? She mistook it for striking a chord with me. She gloated at me. Who told you not to cherish him when you had the chance? Now that I've taken him away, you must be heartbroken, aren't you? She was dying to see regret in my eyes, because only my remorse could validate everything she'd done, but to her dismay, all she could detect in my eyes was sheer awkwardness. I'm dying of cringe here. Can these idiots just get the hell away from me? God damn it. I'm calling the cops to haul their asses to jail. A shiver ran down my spine as I frantically shook off the creeping disgust. I waved my hands at her repeatedly. Spare my brother. I just want to focus on studying now. Please let me be. I slunk back to class like a beaten dog. When I told my classmates about what happened, their usual teasing vanished, replaced by uneasy glances at the smug girl walking away outside. A look of indescribable sorrow crossed his face. After a long silence, my desk mate let out a wistful sigh. This kid comes from a well-off family, doesn't he? Yet he seems starved for affection. I nodded in wholehearted agreement. After that confrontation, they still couldn't resist flaunting their relationship around me, either bragging about what they did today or planning their next date. Basically, they wasted their time doing nothing productive all day long. Meanwhile, I was studying like my life depended on it, because I knew that for someone like me, the college entrance exam was my only ticket to success. Only fools like Shinzinen would pin their hopes on marriage to change their fate. I may not be exceptionally intelligent, but I possess an unyielding and indomitable spirit. Time trickled away minute by minute. In the blink of an eye, my high school years came to an end. Sitting in the internet cafe with trembling hands, I checked my college entrance exam results. The 703 score staring back at me instantly made my eyes well up. I immediately texted the good news to my homeroom teacher and close classmates. They all sincerely congratulated me. On graduation day, we created a class group chat, and for some inexplicable reason, my deskmate dragged Shinzinen into it. She justified it by saying, "We're all classmates after all." Truth be told, I knew she just wanted the juiciest gossip firsthand. Shinzinen brought Gu Jiaojiao along with him. That day, they posted over 70 photos together, even morning after shots. We cheered congratulations publicly, while secretly forming chat groups to vent. One by one, people started sharing their exam results in the group chats. In the end, everyone wrapped up their high school journey with satisfying results, except for two. Some busybodies in the group started tagging Gu Jiaojiao and Shinzinen. After all, Gu Jiaojiao may not be a top student, but she was consistently in the top 100 of her grade. With my tutoring, Shinzinen even had the potential to break into the top 20, although they missed the final mock exams due to various reasons. Both teachers and classmates still had high expectations for them. Skipping a mock exam is one thing, but how could you possibly bail on the actual college entrance exam? The two remained completely silent. The silence was deafening. Someone then posted a photo in the group chat, a pale-faced Gu Jiaojiao clutching her stomach, and Shinzinen with bruises covering his face. A circle of parents had gathered around. The image instantly flooded the group chat. A torrent of question marks poured out. In the end, a few students from business families quietly asked their parents what was really going on. Turns out these two really skipped the college entrance exams. They left school early because Gu Jiaojiao got pregnant. They originally planned to secretly abort the baby, but before they could act, Gu Jiaojiao's father showed up at their door. The Gu family found the couple passionately making out on the hotel bed. They were caught with their pants down. Literally, both ended up hospitalized. Gu Jiaojiao suffered a miscarriage from the shock, while Shinzinen was beaten severely on the spot, still fighting for life in ICU with a concussion. Watching the group chat discussion made my eyebrow twitch uncontrollably. Since my rebirth, too many things have changed. Just then, someone suggested we should at least go see them. After all, we were classmates. Upon closer look, the person raising objections turned out to be my high school deskmate. She sent me a Doge meme, and everything suddenly clicked. I replied with an eye roll emoji. She chuckled and sent a voice message. "Don't tell me you're not curious to check it out." Her bewitching words made my heart skip a beat. How could that be? All I want right now is to see Shinzinen's miserable state. We agreed to visit him at the hospital together, but to our surprise, Shinzinen woke up the moment we entered the ward. The moment he saw me, an unprecedented light flashed in his eyes. "Xing Xing, is that really you? God, I've missed you so much, he staggered, trying to get out of bed, but excruciating pain stopped him cold. He stared at his own body in shock, then looked around at the people nearby with dazed confusion. My eyebrows shot up. Is this guy also reborn or something? Suppressing my suspicions, I shot him a disgusted look. What do you want? Your wife still hospitalized after her miscarriage? He stared at me in shock. What wife? You're the only one I love. The surrounding classmates started making disgusted tisk-tisk noises. That's exactly what I was thinking, muttering damn it. I turned to leave. Little did I know worse was yet to come. After returning from the hospital that day, Shinzinen clung to me like some persistent pest I couldn't shake off. He showed up at my part-time workplace too. He was there on my commute to and from work, driven to distraction by his pestering. I finally confronted him. What exactly do you want? To my shock, he suddenly dropped to his knees before me, crawling closer. He looked up at me with hopeful eyes. I've figured out what happened in this lifetime. I know you must be reborn too. Let's start over, please. I truly love you. In my past life, I was just bewitched by Gu Jiajiao. The only one I've ever truly loved is you. He looked at me intensely as he spoke. You said you liked me best. Remember, at the orphanage, when we were kids, I'd always share my secretly hoarded snacks with you. I smirked cynically. Then what was all that with Gu Jiajiao earlier? His eyes lit up with hope. That's because I love you so much. I can't stand you being cold to me. Why else would I keep using her to provoke you? Besides, the only reason you've done so well in exams your whole life is because I dragged his grades down. Isn't that right? He spoke with self-righteous conviction, even with a hint of expecting praise. I frowned, feeling my disgust for him grow even stronger. What do you mean? I only got this high score because of him. His face darkened under my sarcastic gaze. After all, I'd never treated him this way in our past life. But I wasn't about to let him off the hook, just let out a mocking laugh. I owe my high score to you, no doubt, but honestly, I could have done even better if you and Gu Jiajiao hadn't been constantly getting in my face, so do me a favor, leave me alone. I let out a cold laugh and turned on my heel. I told the security guard at the gate, this guy keeps harassing me. If he shows up again, please call the police for me. He lunged at me with a snarl. You can't do this to me. You're supposed to love me. How dare you not love me? You died for love of me in your past life. How could you be so heartless in this one? But his words barely stirred a ripple in my heart. The security guards dutifully blocked him at the entrance, taking him for a lunatic. They drove him away with undisguised disgust. I heard he still came to harass me a few more times after that, but under the security guard's threat to call the police, he eventually gave up. The next time I saw him was 6 years later. By then I had graduated from college and started my own business. I was chatting and laughing with people around me at a dinner party. Just then, a commotion broke out nearby. Turning my head, I saw two people entering the room. My business partner nudged my shoulder and whispered in my ear. Do you know who they are? They're practically legendary. The Gu family's daughter used to be a decent student, but ever since getting involved with that Shin guy, she's been completely bewitched. Head over heels in love with him. Over the years, she's had multiple abortions for him. Recently, she allegedly fell down the stairs and can no longer conceive. That Shin fellow seems to have someone else in his heart. Never wanted to take responsibility. After this incident, the Gu family threatened to go to the police unless he married her, forcing him into a reluctant marriage. The business partner recounted the story with unmistakable mockery in their eyes. Their mocking gaze made me feel like a circus clown. I stared at them in astonishment as if meeting them for the first time. Seems their relationship hasn't been great during my absence these years. Our eyes met the moment I spotted them. Gu Jiajia's eyes lit up instantly as she strode toward me with an air of haughtiness. She sneered condescendingly. What, did your boss bring you along to this cocktail party? Her disdainful gaze swept over me. All those years of hard work, what was the point? You're still just destined to serve people like us. Clutching Shinzinen possessively, she spoke as if flaunting her triumph. So you got into a top university, yet here you are working under someone who only finished high school. And now you have the nerve to ask me for a partnership. Her assistant beside her was already rolling her eyes, on the verge of passing out, desperately clutching her arm to stop her from speaking further. Pleading eyes turned to Shinzinen, but he was staring back at me with nothing but resentment. It was as if he blamed me for utterly destroying everything he had. Just then, the organizer of the banquet finally made an appearance. He gave a nod in my direction. I responded with a smile. And he stepped onto the stage flattered to begin his speech. his gaze firmly fixed on me. After all, the sole purpose of hosting this cocktail party today was to secure a partnership with me. Just then, Gu Jiaojiao pushed her way to the front row, gazing at him with starry-eyed admiration. She even turned back to throw a mocking jab at me. See that? That's our company's biggest client. Only people of our financial standing can land deals with someone like him. Someone like you will never get the chance to work with him in this lifetime. Shenzinan then leaned in close to me and whispered, I now hold most of the Gu family's real power. If you just admit you like me and show some humility, I can grant you special privileges. A lewd smirk curled at the corners of his mouth. How about this? Spend the night with me, and I'll give you a shot at this partnership deal. But whether you can actually land this opportunity depends entirely on you. My gaze lingered on him, realizing how blind and deaf I must have been in my past life. How could I ever have fallen for such a disgusting creature? Just then, the speech above concluded, the chairman strode briskly toward the audience. Gu Jiaojiao, who'd been waiting expectantly, assumed he was approaching the Gu family and immediately stepped forward with a beaming smile. Chairman, I'm from the Gu. Before she could finish, she watched in disbelief as the seemingly unapproachable chairman walked past her with a warm smile, straight toward me. But back then, I foolishly believed love could sustain us. Turning a deaf ear to my teacher's warnings, the two men froze in shock, staring at me with stunned expressions. The chairman's expression shifted slightly as he introduced with a smile. This is our company's primary raw material supplier I mentioned, also our second largest shareholder after me. I'd like you to meet. We'll be embarking on a 3-year collaboration moving forward. Their expressions shifted through a spectrum of emotions. Shenzinan proved more adaptable than I'd imagined, sidling up with an ingratiating smile. I know, CEO Luo, right, we were high school classmates. Gu Jiajiao nodded frantically, her face contorting into an almost grotesquely obsequious grin. Shenzinan clearly had more to say, his formerly haughty demeanor now replaced by unctuous simpering. We grew up together since childhood, I thought. I raised my hand to cut him off. He tried to speak again, but the chairman's piercing glare instantly silenced him. I simply smiled. Isn't this banquet supposed to celebrate our successful partnership? Kindly escort these two outsiders out. I don't like them. For secure document protection, choose Little Tiger Bot, reliable service with no hidden traps. The chairman glared at the pair with dark eyes and gave a subtle nod to his assistant behind him. Several security personnel promptly arrived and removed the two individuals. Their desperate wails could still be heard from afar. President Luo, we beg you, give us one more chance. The Gu Group can't go bankrupt. Without this deal, we're finished. We're begging you. We were blind to your greatness before. Noticing the wary glances around me, I offered a gentle smile. Let's not allow outsiders to spoil the mood. Raising my glass, I proposed a toast to the chairman, to our future collaboration. The chairman visibly relaxed and raised his glass enthusiastically. To the future, the shadows of the past have faded. From this day forward, my future will be smooth sailing. Story 2. After top-charting singer Jian Pei left the demo of his last song, he died from an overdose of medication. A few days later, I received the full-length version of this song in my email. It was the song he hummed to me in high school. At the very end, there was a sentence spoken with a sobbing voice. I miss you. Time rewound 10 years. The young man sat on the steps with a guitar in his arms and looked at me. Finally, I mustered up the courage to say those words. I like you. A few days after Jian Pei's death, a lot of things were dug up. For example, his biological father had been leeching off him for years. For example, he had severe mental illness, even to the point of experiencing auditory and visual hallucinations. And for another example, he hadn't been doing well at all these years. On the surface, he was a dazzling star in the glorious world. In fact, he had always been trapped in a bottomless abyss, struggling alone. I took several days off and stayed at home all the time. I dug out the high school graduation photo. Jiang Pei stood on the far side, with a cold expression. I didn't go to school that day, and my image in the group photo was photoshopped in, right next to Jiang Pei. I stared at the only photo of us and stood there in a daze. Suddenly, my phone made a sound. I picked it up, but the moment I saw the sender, I froze. It was an email from Jiang Pei, but the next second I realized that it was a scheduled send. It arrived exactly at 12 noon, my hands shaking. I clicked on the file he sent. The moment the music started, I recognized it. This was the last demo he left behind, because he had hummed this song to me in high school. but the version he sent me was the full-length one. 3 minutes passed quickly. When the last guitar note faded away, I was crying so hard that I could barely breathe, but the next second, Jianpei's voice sounded again. Wan Yuan. He called my name, and his voice was filled with a strong sobbing tone. I miss you. I looked at myself in the mirror and stood there in a daze for 2 minutes. You'll be late if you don't go to school now, my mother called from the kitchen. I glanced at the books scattered on the table. Senior 3, then I looked up at the calendar. August 28th, the day I first met Jianpei. After realizing what had happened, I grabbed my school bag and rushed downstairs. By the time I ran to school, my back was soaked with sweat, but I didn't care at all. When I rushed into the classroom, the homeroom teacher was already there. Next to him was Jianpei. He was wearing the most ordinary white t-shirt, and the cuffs were a bit wrinkled from washing, yet his casual glance was still incredibly handsome. The moment our eyes met, the noisy classroom seemed to quiet down for a moment, but in just a few seconds, he looked away. The classmates below the podium were chatting noisily, not bothering to lower their voices at all. Damn, he's so good looking. Who do you think Oldly will make sit next to him? Probably a guy. Just a few seconds after these words were spoken, before I could even sit back in my seat, Oldly spoke. Sit there. He pointed to the empty seat next to me. I paused as I was putting down my bag, but I felt relieved inside. Phew, things were developing as they did before. The class fell silent for a moment, and most of the classmates looked in my direction. Then they exclaimed, he will definitely study hard now. I stood there, stunned, until Jianpei carried his bag, walked over to me, and sat down. He didn't look at me once during the whole process, just as aloof and unapproachable as before. But I was no longer the timid 18-year-old girl, especially since I knew that the 28-year-old Jianpei still had feelings for me. So, while Oldly was speaking, I gently poked Jianpei's arm. He turned to look at me, his expression so cold that it seemed to freeze people. Why is he so fierce? No wonder we only had our first conversation after sitting at the same table for half a month. This time, I mustered up the courage to speak first. My name is Yuan. Oh no, I forgot that I used to be a stutterer. I froze in place, lowered my head, and didn't dare to look at Jianpei again. So embarrassing. He must think I'm some kind of weirdo. Just as I was so embarrassed that I felt like digging a Barbie dream mansion with my toes, I suddenly heard a low in my ear. I looked up, and Jianpei's face was no longer as cold as before. In fact, the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. Jianpei. After reporting his name, he turned his head back, and the slight curve at the corner of his mouth disappeared again. I felt a sense of loss, but the next second, his voice reached my ears again. I know your name is Yuan. I looked at the physics test paper in front of me, frowning deeply. Are high school physics problems this easy? Out of the corner of my eye, several girls were gathered around Jianpei's desk. Even though Jianpei didn't respond at all, they kept talking on their own. My heart sank. What's the use of being able to do physics if I can't even communicate with him normally? I was sighing silently when the physics teacher entered the classroom. He walked straight up to me. The girls around Jianpei's desk scattered in a hurry, leaving Jianpei with his head down, writing something. I took a peek. It seemed to be sheet music. Oh, no wonder he's going to be a top-notch musician in the future. He's already writing songs now. Yuan, help your classmates when you have time. I looked up at the physics teacher. From what I remembered, he was the teacher who cared the most about his students. Maybe because he was an old man, he didn't mince his words. For example, the person next to you, since you got a full score, you can teach the classmates whose scores are still in the single digits when you have time. Jianpei was still writing, as if this had nothing to do with him, especially your desk mate. Jianpei looked up at me. I remembered, this had happened before, but in the past, we just pretended that teaching had been done after being scolded by the teacher. After all, I was a shy and introverted girl back then, and with Jianpei's cold face, who would dare? But this time, I looked at the old man and nodded firmly. Okay. I looked at Jianpei's test paper, which was full of red crosses, and was stunned, but the person beside me seemed not to care at all. He twirled his pen, as if waiting for me to speak. I said with difficulty, "It's okay." Then I grabbed a pen and started writing down the solutions one by one. After all, it would be faster for me to get a new head than to explain these problems verbally now. It was the evening break, and there weren't many people in the class. I originally thought Jianpei would have turned away to do his own things long ago, but when I looked up after finishing writing, he was still staring at me. There was no emotion in his eyes. I didn't know if he was looking at the test paper, the pen, or me, or maybe he was looking at me, but thinking like that was too narcissistic. Jianpei had always been indifferent, as if he had no emotions. If it weren't for that email, I probably would never have known that I had a place in his heart. All done. After I handed the test paper back to him, I immediately turned around and pretended to do my homework, but just a few minutes later, Jianpei moved the test paper back to me. I looked at him. I still don't understand this one. He pointed to a problem. Explain it to me. I stood there, stunned. Explain. Is that not okay? Okay. I took a deep breath, trying to make my words flow smoothly, but it still didn't go well. Gravity and friction. What was I talking about? Take it slow. I turned to look at the person who spoke. Jianpei smiled, although it wasn't obvious. His lips indeed curved into a beautiful arc. Even his eyes were filled with a bit of twinkling light. The ceiling fan creaked as it turned. I suddenly remembered that a long time ago, Jianpei had also said this to me. Go ahead, it's okay to speak slowly. He was the first person other than my parents who was willing to listen to me until I finished speaking. He was also the first person to encourage me to talk more. Dong dong dong, so useless. It seemed that I had become the one who fell in love first again. This time, the relationship between Jianpei and me seemed to progress rapidly. I sat in my seat, staring straight at Jianpei. There were still a lot of people standing next to his seat, although he hardly ever replied to them. Looking at myself, I was just an unremarkable student in the class. Sometimes I would be in a trance, wondering what I, so insignificant, could do to prevent his death 10 years later. This wasn't about redemption. I just wanted to pull him out of that hellish life, let him enjoy the sunshine on earth to the fullest. During the lunch break, Jianpei took the initiative to ask me, why were you staring at me after class? His tone wasn't cold, and he even initiated the conversation, which was a big step forward. I told him the truth. Because you're good looking. It was the first time I saw Jianpei blush. After I said this, he was first stunned for a moment, then turned his head away. A suspicious red flush appeared on his face, even reaching the tips of his ears. What's he doing? It's not like no one has ever complimented him on his looks. The girls in the class talk about how incredibly handsome he is all day long. Why didn't I see him blush then, after the bell rang? It was a half-hour nap time. I lay on the desk, but I couldn't fall asleep no matter what, so I simply opened my eyes and started looking at Jianpei intently. He had his eyes closed, and his face was facing me. I was so close that I could see each of his eyelashes clearly. Alas, how could someone be so good-looking? I was still thinking about this when Jianpei suddenly opened his eyes. The next second, my eyes were covered by a hand. I heard Jianpei's soft but gritted teeth voice in my ear. Stop looking. His voice was hoarse, and his palm was burning hot. It seemed that he was also moved. The first monthly exam was preceded by our last sports meeting. I stood under the shade of a tree, staring blankly as Jianpei ran the 3,000-meter race. I held a bottle of water that I had just bought in my hand, and it seemed to have warmed up from being held. The classmates in the class were all gathered at the front, cheering. I took a deep breath, but what came out was, come on, oh well, I give up. Jianpei was running in the lead. Every time he passed a class, there would be a burst of cheers. Oh, a future superstar. The water bottle in my hand now seemed annoying, especially when I glanced at the finish line. Several girls were already waiting there with water in their hands. They're all so beautiful. I felt inferior. I was still in a daze when the crowd suddenly erupted into cheers. I looked up and saw that Jianpei had 200 meters left and was starting his final sprint. The 18-year-old boy was like a white dove. It seemed that with just a flap of his wings, he could soar high. Fly, Jianpei, don't fall this time. Jianpei crossed the finish line amidst the screams of his classmates. In the blink of an eye, he was surrounded by the crowd. I stood there, completely giving up the idea of giving him the water. I couldn't even speak properly, let alone give him water. Just as I turned back to my seat, a classmate in the front row suddenly called out to me, Yuan, it seems like Jianpei is looking for you. I squeezed to the front, half believing. As soon as I arrived, I saw Jianpei looking in my direction. Then, the moment he saw me, he waved at me, motioning for me to come over. Everyone around him looked at me. I subconsciously swallowed, and with stiff hands and feet, I walked step by step towards him. Water. He held out his hand to me. Huh. I didn't react at first, and my hand subconsciously tightened around the bottle. Jianpei frowned slightly, then suddenly leaned down and whispered in my ear, "Consider it as me buying it." Then he took the water from my hand. The people around us exclaimed, and then started chatting noisily. "Are Jianpei and Wang Yuan on such good terms?" "I don't think so, they don't talk much. But Wang Yuan has been explaining physics problems to Jianpei recently." He does need some tutoring in physics." My face started to feel hot. Fortunately, the teachers shouted from the side, "The students who won awards in the 3,000-meter race, come to the podium to receive your awards quickly." Before Jianpei left, he looked at me, and it seemed like he said something. "Wait for me." That seemed to be what his lips said. I'm done for. I'm completely under his spell. After the sports meeting, there was a rare holiday for Senior 3 students, however. It was just our turn to do the cleaning this week, so Jianpei and I had to stay a little longer. After all the classmates in the class left, I picked up a broom. When I turned around, I bumped right into Jianpei, who was going to clean the blackboard. Sorry. I couldn't speak clearly at all. "What are you sorry for?" Jianpei looked at me, looking into his eyes. I held my breath for a moment. And then my mood suddenly calmed down. "I didn't talk enough to you." I didn't talk to you enough. Obviously, this sentence didn't make any sense to Jianpei at the moment, but he just lowered his eyes. When he looked up again, there was a hint of a smile in his eyes. "Just talk more in the future." "Why did you take my water?" I asked sincerely. Jianpei's hand, which was cleaning the blackboard, paused, and he didn't turn around. "I thought it was for me." "Why?" "I saw you holding it and looking in my direction when I was running." My eyelids twitched, and I blurted out, "You saw me." This time, Jianpei finally turned around and stared straight at me. "Yeah, I saw you. I saw you at a glance." When I went home, my face was still burning hot. I wore the gold medal Jianpei gave me around my neck. Although it wasn't heavy, it was very noticeable. "Is a bottle of water enough in return?" He looked into my eyes. "Thanks." Now I really can't say a single word. Why didn't I realize before that he was so charming? When I got home, my father was also there. When he saw the gold medal around my neck, he was taken aback for a moment but didn't say anything. However, during dinner, my mother suddenly asked me, Yuan, how's school going recently?" I said without batting an eyelid, "It's going well. I heard from your teacher that you've been helping your classmates with their studies recently." My father interjected, "What's going on? Have you suddenly become brave?" My hand, which was picking up food, paused. From what my father said, he must have called the teacher to ask, which was why he knew so much. Helping classmates. I looked at my father with no expression. The dining table suddenly fell into an awkward silence. "Is that so? That's good." My father smiled and even picked up a piece of meat for me. "It's good to help classmates, but don't let it affect your own grades." Yuan, you're already in Senior 3. The monthly exam is next week, right?" I suddenly remembered something. For example, why wasn't I at school when we took the graduation photo? At that time, rumors spread about Jianpei's family background, saying that he was the son of a mistress, and his father refused to acknowledge him. Then Jianpei got into a fierce fight with the person who spread the rumors. I was there, watching Jianpei throw punches with red-rimmed eyes. After that, they were asked to bring their parents to school, and my father came too. As we walked out of the office, my father said to me, Yuan, let's review at home for the next half month." "Why?" "Your father is afraid you won't be able to focus." Just as he finished speaking, Jianpei walked out of the office and heard those words clearly. Jianpei's eyes seemed to turn red then. But it was so long ago that I'd completely forgotten about it. I put down my bowl, and the chopsticks hit the edge of the bowl with a bang. "I will do well in the exam." After saying that, I picked up the bowl and left the dining table. At a little past 8 in the evening, my mother came into my room. Yuan, are you angry?" "No." I looked up at her. My mother said earnestly, "Your father called the teacher because he was afraid you'd be bullied at school." "But I was clearly very happy today." I replied word by word. My mother was taken aback and said illogically, "But after all, you stutter." "Mom," I interrupted her for the first time, "have you ever thought that my stutter could be cured?" My mother was stunned by my question. However, my stutter was completely cured in the second year after I graduated from high school, all because of Jianpei. That summer, Jianpei participated in a talent show with his original song. He became an overnight sensation on the internet, At the end of the final, holding the gold trophy in one hand and the microphone in the other, he looked straight into the camera and said, "I hope everyone can proudly mention me to their friends in the future. I also hope that person can see this." After saying this, the host immediately picked up on the clue. "Who is this person?" Jeonpei paused and then smiled. "My grandfather." Sitting in front of the TV, looking at the shining young man on the screen, I cried for no apparent reason. From then on, I started practicing speaking desperately. I practiced by listening to cross-talk, by listening to Jeonpei's songs, and even by mumbling to myself while taking a shower. I'm not sure why, maybe it was because of what Jeonpei said, or perhaps, I still wanted to have some connection with Jeonpei, even if I was just one of his small fans. Finally, half a year later, I was no longer a stutterer. Everyone around me also knew that I was a fan of Jeonpei. During the holidays, I went to the capital to watch one of his concerts. I got a seat at the very back, and I could barely see him clearly, sitting there, with his singing and the cheers of the fans in my ears. He was so dazzling on the big screen that those high school memories seemed like a beautiful dream. It was also on that day that I truly realized the gap between us. He was the moon hanging in the sky, while I was just an ordinary speck of dust. That's fine, it's not so bad. No, it's not fine at all. I don't want Jeonpei to die. Looking at my mother, I spoke in a tone more forceful than ever. "Mom, I know what I'm doing. I'm already 18 years old." My mother looked at me without saying a word. When she left, she just said, "The monthly exam is next week. Review well." Looking at the Chinese textbook in my hand, for the first time I was glad that I was at least somewhat intelligent. In my previous life, I graduated from university, got a master's degree, and then a doctorate. I spent my days focusing on physics research at the institute. High school knowledge was a piece of cake for me. I just needed to memorize more for Chinese. However, I looked up at the door of my room. I had never gone against my parents' wishes before. In my previous life, I did whatever they hoped I would do. Just now was the first time I had ever refuted them. Come to think of it, my persistent stutter was somewhat related to my parents. When I was a child, some classmates often made fun of my stutter. To protect me, my parents asked the teacher to move me to a seat next to the podium. No one dared to speak ill of me in front of me anymore, but at the same time, no one talked to me either. As I got older, they seemed to have a conditioned response. Before the start of each semester, they would go to the teacher and ask not to assign me a deskmate, fearing that I would be bullied. It wasn't until high school that they eased up a bit, but by then, I had already become withdrawn, and no one wanted to sit with me. They put a protective shield around me, but at the same time, they blocked my communication with the outside world. But this time, I'd rather not be the obedient girl. I want to do what I think is right. The day I went back to school, my father drove me there. When we arrived at the school gate, just as I was about to get out of the car, my father stopped me. "Wait, I need to talk to your teacher." My hand stopped mid-movement, and anger suddenly welled up inside me. I didn't even know why I was so angry. This wasn't like my usual personality at all. Suppressing my anger, I asked, "Why do you need to talk to the teacher?" "To ask about your situation." My father got out of the car without looking at me. I followed him. On the way to the teaching building, the atmosphere was extremely tense, and neither of us said a word. When we reached the office door, my father turned to me and said, "Why don't you go to the classroom? I also want to know about my situation." I looked at him, trying my best to appear calm. Silence. My father opened the door, and Mr. Lee was there. When he saw my father and me, he stood up from his seat. "Won Yuan's father, what can I do for you?" My father glanced at me, as if hinting at something, and said, "I came to ask about Won Yuan's recent situation." Huh, Mr. Lee was confused. Won Yuan has a new deskmate, and she's not very good at socializing, so I came to ask about it. Mr. Lee looked at me and then at my father, as if he understood something. "Yes, since Won Yuan didn't have a deskmate, I let the new student sit next to her. But isn't it inappropriate for a boy and a girl to sit together?" My father finally revealed his true intention. He was here to change my deskmate for me. Or maybe he wanted me to go back to sitting alone. Their conversation was a bit loud, and the old teacher also looked up and chimed in. "I think it's a good thing that Won Yuan and Jeonpei sit together. Won Yuan can even help Jeonpei with his physics, but won't this affect her studies?" My father sneered. "I heard that her new deskmate is an art student. His grades probably aren't very good, right? He has the path of art exams, but Yuan Yuan can only rely on the college entrance examination. Stop. I couldn't hold back my anger anymore and interrupted my father. The office fell silent. Whether it will have an impact or not, I said through gritted teeth, determined not to stutter as I used to. We'll know when the exam results come out. After saying this, ignoring their reactions, I walked straight towards the door. The moment the door opened, the person standing in the corridor looked at me. It was Jian Pei. I didn't know how long he had been standing there, nor how much of the conversation in the office he had heard. He just stood there quietly, looking at me. His expression was more indifferent than I had ever seen. My eyelids twitched. Just as I was about to explain, Jian Pei turned and walked towards the classroom. He didn't say a word. Jian Pei, I chased after him. Do you want to change seats? The corners of his mouth turned up, but he didn't look at me. He exuded an icy aura. Should I be timid again? A voice in my heart asked. No. I stopped, looking at his back, and shouted as loudly as I could. Jian Pei also stopped. I don't want to change, I repeated, my heart pounding with excitement, as if it would shatter my rationality, but I didn't come back here to be a coward, this time. Jian Pei finally turned around and looked at me. What he said next shocked me. His eyes seemed to turn red again, and his voice trembled. Yuan Yuan, he called my name. You weren't like this before. Why did I go back 10 years in time, after studying physics for so many years? For the first time, I was willing to believe in ghosts and gods. Maybe the gods in the sky also thought Jian Pei was a pity, so they chose me, the lucky one, to help him, but it seemed I was completely wrong. It turned out, Jian Pei wasn't the same Jian Pei as before either. During self-study, Mr. Li called me out. Yuan Yuan, I've talked with your father. We'll decide whether to change your seat or not after the monthly exam results come out. The teacher also thinks that unless your grades are really affected, changing seats now would be like smearing mud on Jian Pei. Mr. Li spoke softly and patted me on the shoulder. Personally, I think you were very brave today. The moment I heard these words, tears welled up and streamed down my face. I sniffed hard, but I couldn't stop the tears. Mr. Li was startled. Don't cry. There's nothing to cry about. I wiped the tears from my face and forced a smile. It's okay. The important thing was that I didn't stand by and watch Jian Pei's tragedy unfold again. The moment I sat back in my seat, the person beside me asked softly, "Are you going to change seats?" His tone was flat, and there was no expression on his face, as if he was refusing to show his true emotions. But what about his hand that was gripping the pen tightly? The 18-year-old Jian Pei wasn't this contradictory. No, I replied. Jian Pei paused but didn't say anything, just nodded. Do you want to change? I wrote these words on a piece of paper and slid it towards Jian Pei. 2 minutes later, the paper was slid back. There were 2 lines of words, but the first line was crossed out and blackened. Only the outline could be vaguely seen. Either way is fine. The second line said, no. I turned to look at him. He was writing something with a pen. When he noticed my gaze, he looked up at me. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw the sheet music he was writing. The handwriting on the paper was bold and unrestrained, nothing like the style of an 18-year-old. If you don't want to, then we won't change. This time, I'll be the brave one. The first monthly exam lasted 2 days. With the tight schedule in Senior 3, the teachers graded the papers as quickly as they could. When the results came out, Mr. Li gasped in surprise. I ranked 4th in the whole school. I hardly lost any points in math, physics, and chemistry, but in Chinese, I only got a little over 100 points. Although my grades were good before, I usually only ranked around 30th in the school. When I showed the report card to my parents, for the first time, they didn't say anything, especially my father. He stared at the report card for a long time, and finally squeezed out 2 words through his teeth. As you wish. Another piece of news, which might not be bad, was that Jian Pei ranked last in the class. That seemed reasonable. Just as I was wondering if he could get into university in this life, Jian Pei's math test paper was handed out. His score was in the 20s, starting with a 2. It was a glaring red mark, but in an instant, Jian Pei stuffed the paper into his drawer, then turned his gaze to me. Is there something? His tone was so calm as if the paper didn't belong to him. I frowned, about to say something when a voice came from the classroom door. Yuan Yuan, someone is looking for you. Jian Pei and I both looked up in that direction. Fu Qing stood at the door of my classroom, holding some books. Jian Pei seemed to mutter something softly, but I had already stood up and quickly ran towards Fu Qing. As soon as I reached the door, I couldn't wait to stretch out my hand. Fuqing was the son of my mother's best friend, and we grew up together. When we got older, we even worked in the same city. We were each other's best friends. I was so excited when I was reborn that I forgot I could ask him for help. Why did you suddenly ask me for books on psychology? Fuqing put the books in my hand and looked straight into my eyes. It felt like he could see through all my thoughts. No wonder he would become a top-notch psychologist in the future. He already seemed to be able to read people's minds. I want to cure my stutter, I said without batting an eyelid. Actually, it was for Jiangpei. If Jiangpei was also reborn, then he probably still had psychological problems. After thinking about it for a few days, I decided not to let Jiangpei know that I was reborn for now. After all, as an 18-year-old, he didn't know about all his painful experiences in the future, and it might stimulate him. Let things take their natural course, I would tell him eventually. But I needed to wait for the right moment. Upon hearing this, Fuqing adjusted his glasses. Then you could just come to me directly. Then his gaze shifted behind me. Excuse me. The next second, a cold voice came from behind me, as if it could freeze people. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Jiangpei standing behind me, looking rather unhappy. Before I could say anything, Fuqing grabbed my arm and pulled me towards him. Your father told me to keep an eye on you, and to take you home during the holidays. After these two sentences, Jiangpei's expression seemed to turn even colder, and Fuqing just had to add fuel to the fire. Classmate, I've made way for you. Why don't you go? Seeing that the atmosphere was getting more and more awkward, I grabbed Jiangpei's sleeve. Before his face could turn any darker, I said, class is about to start. Everyone, go back to your seats. I couldn't believe it. I could barely speak a complete sentence, and yet I had to play peacemaker. On the way back to our seats, Jiangpei looked uncharacteristically awkward. His eyes were fixed on the hand where I had grabbed his sleeve. I suddenly realized and let go. Jiangpei's eyes darkened slightly. Are you on good terms with him? He asked casually. Yeah, we are, I said on purpose. Rip, someone tore a strip in the just distributed test paper. I couldn't help but laugh. I regard him as my brother. Jiangpei looked at me and said in a tone that seemed to say, what does that have to do with me? Oh, that's nice. However, the corners of his mouth had already curled up. Then he pulled out the test paper that he had stuffed into the desk drawer and spread it out on the table. He got 28 points on a 150-point test paper. Fortunately, he was an art student. I took a quick look and then looked away, but I don't know what was going through someone's mind, and he moved the test paper closer to me. I looked at him. Jiangpei didn't look the least bit guilty. I think I also need someone to teach me math. As if afraid that I would refuse, he added, I've made progress in physics. How many points? 39. Oh, he might as well not have said that. During the National Day holiday, my parents took me to a temple. They burned incense and prayed to the Buddha, hoping that my grades would remain good and that I could get into a good university in the future. I knelt in front of the goddess of mercy, only praying for the safety of the people around me, especially Jiangpei. I didn't expect that when we were about to leave, the abbot of the temple stopped me. The nearly 70-year-old man looked at me, and there seemed to be some complex emotions in his clear eyes. Little benefactor, did you come from a faraway place? A faraway place? No, it only took half an hour to drive here. No, I suddenly realized what the abbot meant. He probably saw that I didn't belong here. Yes, I nodded. The abbot nodded slightly and looked at the Buddha statue in front of us. The weather was fine, and the sunlight shone in, scattering and reflecting. It looked as if the Buddha statue was really shining. For the people around you. Yes. After a few seconds of silence, the old man took out a talisman from his pocket and handed it to me. Take it, little benefactor. In everything in the world, when there is gain, there is loss. Each life has its own hardships, gain and loss, hardships. On the way back, I sat in the back seat of the car, staring at the talisman in my hand in a trance. Each life has its own hardships. Then what was my hardship in this life? It wasn't my hardship, it was Jiangpei's. After the National Day holiday, Jiangpei didn't come back to school. The person who should have been sitting next to me didn't show up all day. When handing in homework in the evening, I asked Mr. Li, why didn't Jiangpei come? Mr. Li didn't think much of it and sighed. His grandfather fell a few days ago. He doesn't have any other relatives at home, so he's been taking care of his grandfather in the hospital these days. Sigh. This kid has had a tough life. I heard that his grandfather is his only relative. I didn't listen to the rest of his words. The moment I walked out of the office, I felt more powerless than ever before. Why did he have to bear all the hardships? Didn't the gods in the sky even have a little bit of pity for him? After the lights went out at school, I stood in front of the school wall. I stepped on the garbage piled up in the corner to climb onto the wall. Then, closing my eyes, I jumped down. I didn't stand firm when I landed, and my ankle twisted. A sharp pain shot through me instantly. Hopping on one foot, I didn't delay for a second. After getting on the night shift bus, I finally had time to stretch my ankle. Looking at the city lights shining, I was in a trance for a moment. With the psychological age of 28, I actually did something like sneaking out of school over the wall at night. When I arrived at the hospital, I went to the inpatient department. Before I had searched for a few minutes, Jianpei just came out of the ward and walked straight to the payment window. I hid around the corner. I wanted to go out, but I couldn't come up with a reason to explain why I was there. Not many lights were on in the corridor. The dim light made Jianpei look even thinner. Before long, Jianpei finished paying and turned to go back, but when he passed the reception desk, he stopped. After a moment of silence, he borrowed a phone from the nurse. He stood there for a long time, making call after call, but no one answered. I don't know how many times he dialed the number, but finally, the other side picked up. Hello. The person's voice was so loud that I could even hear the impatience in his tone. Jianpei stood in the light, his expression calm. Can you lend me some money? As soon as he said this, the person on the other end exploded. Jianpei, you don't even have my last name. Why should I give you money? Calling so many times in the middle of the night. Are you crazy? Jianpei's expression didn't change. I said I'm borrowing. I'll pay you back in the future. Pay back? You're a waste of money yourself. How can I expect you to pay me back? The insults from the other side became more and more unpleasant, but Jianpei just listened quietly. When the other person stopped cursing, he asked, so, this is what you really think? Yes, After getting the confirmation, Jianpei hung up the phone without hesitation. He stood there like the only tree on a desolate plain. I couldn't hold back anymore and walked out. Jianpei, the young man immediately looked in my direction. Surprisingly, he didn't look surprised. He didn't even ask me why I was there at that time. He just froze for a moment, then nodded and forced a bitter smile. We meet again. Then he walked to the seat in the hall and sat down on his own. I quickly followed and sat down beside him. Jianpei didn't look at me. He just kept muttering to himself. I thought I wouldn't see you again this time. Anyway, I just went back 10 years in time. It's not like I was truly reborn. I'm starting to wonder if the one you on at school is also a figment of my imagination. She wasn't like this before. By the end, Jianpei's voice was so low that it was almost inaudible. I bit my lower lip hard to keep the tears from falling. So that's how it was. His previous auditory and visual hallucinations were all related to me. The young man in front of me had a dull expression. His eyes were cloudy, and there was no clarity in them. Jianpei, I reached out to him. This time, I'm not fake. Jianpei suddenly turned to look at me, his gaze fixed on my palm, but he didn't reach out to me. I can't touch it, he muttered softly. I've never been able to touch it. The next second, I directly grabbed his arm, ignoring his stunned expression. I placed his hand on mine and held it tightly. Jianpei, this time, I'm not fake. Time seemed to stand still at that moment. It was so quiet around us that I could clearly hear Jianpei's increasingly rapid breathing. Wan Yuan, he called me. His tone was exactly the same as in that email. I'm here. I don't know how long it took, but the person beside me gradually regained clarity in his eyes. However, his gaze was still fixed on my hand holding his tightly. I'm real, I repeated. It's real, Jianpei murmured, then turned his gaze to me. But it's not real either. You're not the 18-year-old Wan Yuan, he said it firmly. I was stunned for a moment, then took a deep breath. Yes, I'm not. We both came from 10 years later. Did I die? After a long silence, Jianpei asked me. In that world, yes. Did you listen to the email I sent you? Yes. Jianpei seemed to understand. He stood up and tried to pull his hand away, but I held on tightly, and he couldn't pull it out. It's late, you should go back. He seemed to be chasing me away. No, Wan Yuan. He held my arm with his other hand and tried to push me away, as if he wanted to break free from my grip. Don't pity me. The corners of his eyes turned red, and it seemed that he was about to cry at any moment. I was going crazy. It wasn't pity, not compassion. I'm not pitying you. I'm here because my feelings are the same as yours. It was because we had the same feelings. It was because I liked him too. People shouldn't be too straightforward, otherwise, when they calm down, they'll blush furiously and be too embarrassed to say a word. Jianpei and I sat there, not daring to look at each other. After about 10 minutes, Jianpei asked me, "Did you skip school to come here? If he doesn't know how to chat, he doesn't have to talk." "Yeah," I replied sullenly, "actually. I'm fine, I'm not a child anymore." As he spoke, he probably realized how ridiculous it sounded, and his voice grew softer and softer. "I don't believe it," I said bluntly. There was another moment of silence. "I'm really much better." That was the first time since I came back that the first time what? The first time, I couldn't control my emotions. I frowned. There's no need to control them. What's there to control? Laugh when you want to laugh, cry when you want to cry. And if you want to smash this damn world, then smash it. Jianpei was stunned. "You're so different from before." "You're different too." I stared at him. It was already late at night. Only one light was on in the corridor, like a moon. I changed the subject. "How's your grandfather?" "He's okay. He just needs to be observed for a while longer." "Aren't you going to sleep later?" "It's okay. I'm not sleepy." But as we were talking, his head suddenly leaned on my shoulder. He was sound asleep and wouldn't wake up no matter how much I called him. After it completely quieted down, my hand involuntarily reached out and touched Jianpei's head. His hair was quite soft, and a bit greasy, but the corners of my mouth curved up involuntarily. I wasn't afraid anymore. If there were any more hardships, we could bear them together. If necessary, we could be the ones who go against the wind. Jianpei slept until almost dawn, and I had to shake him awake. I had to catch the early morning bus back to school. After reminding him several times not to bear things alone if anything happened, I turned to leave. "Wan Yuan," Jianpei called out to me. I turned around and looked at him. The morning light shone on Jianpei, and I thought I saw his eyes shining brightly. "Will you come again later?" Yes, as long as he was there, I would come. The school has 1 day off a week. Actually, it's not a full day at all. School ends at 3 p.m. and we have to be back at school before 9 a.m. the next day. As soon as Mr. Lee announced the end of class, I grabbed my bag and rushed out of the classroom, planning to go to the hospital to see Jianpei and his grandfather. As soon as I reached the door, I ran into Fu Qing, who had said he would take me home. He looked at me for a few seconds, as if he could read my mind. "Where are you going?" "Nowhere." Fu Qing stared into my eyes, and the next sentence sent a chill down my spine. "You skipped school on Monday night, didn't you?" "Huh." I pretended not to understand. "On Monday, I happened to be on patrol after the lights went out." The young man in front of me had an unchanged expression. I saw. Before he could finish, I covered his mouth. Then I lowered my head to confess and humbly begged for mercy. "Don't tell anyone. I really had something very important to do that day." Fu Chang's gaze shifted to my hand, and then he nodded, but as soon as I let go, I heard him say, "So you really did skip school?" "I'm not on the patrol team," Fu Qing analyzed calmly. "I just happened to see you sneaking in from outside the school gate on Tuesday morning. I just tested you earlier." But my words just now had clearly confirmed his guess. "Where were you planning to go?" "The hospital." "To see who?" "Jianpei." Fu Qing didn't respond immediately. After a long silence, he stepped aside to make way for me. "You can go, but I'm coming with you." In the ward, I met Jianpei's grandfather for the first time. The old man was kind-looking, completely different from Jianpei's personality. Fu Qing waited for me at the door of the ward and didn't come in. I handed the organized review materials to Jianpei, taking advantage of his grandfather's presence. I hinted at his studies. "It's senior 3, study hard, otherwise, he wouldn't be able to get into university in this life." Jianpei clearly understood the meaning behind my words. His hand froze as he took the books. Grandfather happily echoed me from the side. "Yes, listen to your little deskmate and study hard." As he spoke, he grabbed me and told me a lot of stories about Jianpei's childhood. For example, when he was a child, he was so delicate looking that the girls in kindergarten insisted on playing house with him and made him be the mother. Another example was that when he was a child, he was too playful to do his homework. After being scolded, he ran away from home, but his grandfather didn't even notice he was gone. In the end, he came back home crying with a head full of mosquito bites. Jianpei couldn't stand it anymore and walked out of the ward. After Jianpei closed the door of the ward, the smile on grandfather's face faded a bit. "Wan Yuan." Grandfather held my hand and sighed. "Jianpei's mother passed away early. and his father died even earlier. He's always had a stern face since he was a child, don't take it to heart. But I think he's been in a good mood recently, he often smiles for no reason. Anyway, if he bullies you, tell grandfather, and I'll teach him a lesson. Grandfather talked to me for a long time. Finally, Jiangpei came in and interrupted him. It's almost 5 o'clock, she still needs to go home for dinner. Before leaving, Jiangpei said to me a little awkwardly, I'll be back at school in a few days. Okay, I nodded. After a few seconds of silence, Jiangpei spoke again. I remember everything you said last time. He lowered his head, his voice becoming softer. So, I'll work hard. On the way home, I was thinking about how to ask Fuqing to spare me and not tell my parents what he knew. But before I could say anything, Fuqing asked me first, was it also for him that you asked me for those books last time? Yes. Do you like him? Yes. My mouth answered this question faster than my brain could think. Oh no. I had just added another charge of puppy love to my list of crimes. Oh, unexpectedly, Fuqing just nodded slightly. Don't worry, I won't tell your parents about this. Huh. I stood there, thinking I had misheard, but Fuqing kept walking. And his pace was getting faster and faster. I just had a chat with him. He seems like a nice guy, but he's a bit depressed. You can remind him to see a doctor. That's good, he said. We've known each other for so many years. And this is the first time I've seen you be so brave. It seems like you've become an adult before me. A few days later, as he promised, Jiangpei returned to school and focused on his studies. In November, art exam policies were introduced in various provinces. Other art students in the school took leave for art exam training, but only Jiangpei remained in the classroom for classes. It wasn't that he was overly confident in himself, it was simply because he didn't have the money. His family originally had little savings, and his grandfather's hospitalization cost a large sum. If I hadn't kept an eye on him, he would have planned to eat instant noodles that cost 2 yuan per pack every day. It's so tough. How could it be this tough? I lay on the desk, feeling miserable. He somehow sensed my emotions and instead comforted me. Just because we don't have money now doesn't mean we'll never have it. I still have the money for the travel expenses to take the exams. Better not comfort me. The two of us, with a combined psychological age of almost 60, can't scrape together more than a few dollars. All I seem to be able to do is stay by his side, and help him with his math, physics, and chemistry, where his average scores are less than 40. At the beginning of December, Jiangpei took a half-month leave to take exams at major art universities across the country, so every day after the evening self-study, I was always the first one to rush out of the classroom, all for the sake of running to the school phone booth and making a call to him. Calls from the school phone automatically hung up after 3 minutes. In order to talk to him more, my stutter was almost cured. Did you eat well today? A helpless reply came from the other end. Yes, I ate KFC. The beef buns sold at the stall outside the door. They're delicious, 5 yuan each. How about your mood? I was afraid he would have an episode while he was away. Not bad. Jiangpei seemed to be smiling on the other end, but I'm extremely happy right now. When I returned to the dormitory, my roommates thought I had a fever. Otherwise, why was my face as red as a ripe tomato? The day Jiangpei came back, the small southern city unexpectedly had a heavy snowfall. When he entered the classroom with his bag on his back, the snowflakes on his shoulders hadn't melted yet. They sparkled and looked beautiful. However, he seemed to have lost a lot of weight. It happened to be a physics class. The old teacher was lecturing vigorously on the podium, while Jiangpei secretly took something out of his bag and stuffed it to me. It was a metal badge related to the Little Prince, the protagonist of my favorite story. The badge was very exquisite, with the main part depicting the Little Prince standing on planet B612, along with his rose. This time, the Little Prince found his rose. Jiangpei said softly. My vision gradually blurred. Am I the Little Prince or the rose? The Little Prince who traveled through countless planets and finally mustered the courage to search for his rose. Jiangpei, come and solve this problem on the blackboard. I don't know how. Working senior high school seniors had to go back to school, with less than half a year left until the college entrance examination. Almost everyone focused all their attention on review, and Jiangpei needed to work even harder. Although his art exam scores were incredibly excellent, if his college entrance examination scores didn't reach the admission line, no matter how good his art exam results were, they would be useless. Fortunately, in the new semester, Our seats remained unchanged. Of course, I took it upon myself to give him extra tutoring. After all, he couldn't understand much of what was taught in class, but after tutoring him for a long time, sometimes I didn't have time to finish my own homework. After this happened several times, Mr. Lee had an opinion and even called me to the office to scold me. It's a good thing to help classmates, but you also need to take care of your own grades. But this was the only time. Because in the following mock exams, I ranked first in the whole school every time, and I remained the top scorer in math, physics, and chemistry without exception. If a student has good grades, they are treated like a treasure everywhere. After that, Mr. Lee never bothered me about whether I handed in my homework or not. Well, actually, I still had to hand in my Chinese homework because I only scored around 110 points every time. Jianpei's grades also improved rapidly. Perhaps due to his mature psychological age, although he didn't have much knowledge stored in his mind, he studied in an orderly manner, coupled with his non-stop studying. In the last mock exam, his total score exceeded the previous year's admission line by 40 or 50 points, half a month before the college entrance examination. We took graduation photos. Standing next to him, I suddenly remembered that something hadn't developed according to the previous trajectory. For example, this time, no one spread rumors about Jianpei's family background, and Jianpei didn't get into a fight, and when taking the graduation photo, I was truly standing beside him, while the photographer was still adjusting the equipment. I poked Jianpei and told him my discovery. That's because the person who spread the rumors before was jealous that I often outshone him by performing in school activities. Jianpei was a bit speechless. Oh, that explains it. In the past 6 months, Jianpei had been buried in doing practice questions day and night, not participating in any school activities. He didn't even have the chance to interact with that person, let alone have a conflict. Classmates, are you ready? The photographer called out in front. I looked at the camera. But my hand hidden by my side couldn't stay still. Secretly, I hooked one of Jianpei's fingers. Jianpei, Mr. Lee called out to him when looking at the photos. You seem to be in a great mood today. The college entrance examination passed by in a flash, so quickly that it felt like a dream. This time, I was admitted to a key university in the north, whose physics department was one of the best in the country. Jianpei was also admitted to a conservatory of music in the capital. The school held a graduation ceremony at the end of July and specially invited Jianpei as a guest performer. Mr. Lee said to me during a casual chat, if this kid becomes famous in the future, our school will make a fortune. Yeah, he has good judgment. Jianpei's performance was the opening act. He held a guitar and sang Rice Field on stage, making the audience cheer loudly. After he finished singing, I waited for him off stage, but he didn't come back. My phone vibrated when I took it out. It was a message from Jianpei. I'm in the classroom, with everyone gathered in the school auditorium. The teaching building had never been so quiet. It was so quiet that I could clearly hear my pounding heartbeat. The classroom was on the 4th floor. Just as I reached the mezzanine between the 3rd and 4th floors, I saw Jianpei. He was sitting on the steps, propping his face with one hand and smiling. I stopped 3 or 4 meters away from him. What's up? There's a song I've always wanted to sing to you in person but never did. Wan Yuan. Is it still too late to sing it now? Was it still too late? We used to be cowards. We clearly liked each other but missed out on 10 years. With red eyes, I said, it's not too late. Time went back 10 years, and we had gone through so much together. This time, Jianpei sat on the steps with a guitar in his arms, looking at me, and sang that song again. The song he had only sung to me. The song written only for me. Finally, after the last note faded, I mustered up the courage to say the words that had been buried in my heart. Jianpei, I like you. Jianpei smiled, his eyes bright, and reached out his hand to me. So, can we hold hands? Can we walk forward together? The moment our fingers touched, Jianpei stood up and embraced me. I like you too, like you so much. It was our first love. Like the sunlight that falls on you in summer, not scorching hot. Because a breeze has blown by. Before going to university to register, I went to the temple again. This time, I went with Jianpei. This time, it was Jianpei who knelt devoutly in front of the Guanyin statue and prayed. I stood by and watched him, smiling. I thought you wouldn't believe in this kind of thing. It had been a full year since we were reborn, and my stutter was almost completely cured. Jianpei looked at me. Shouldn't I be the one saying that? Oh, he's right. I almost forgot that I used to study physics. There was a fairly well-known love tree outside the temple, with red ribbons hanging from its branches. At a glance, most of the ribbons had the names of both parties written on them. I stared at them for a long time. Just as I was about to ask Jiang Pei if he wanted to hang one too, I turned around and saw that he already had a red ribbon in his hand. "Why didn't you ask me?" I wanted to tease him. Jiang Pei narrowed his eyes. "You don't want to?" "Yes, I do." I blinked. I just didn't expect that the famous Mr. Jiang would be so proactive. This time, Jiang Pei didn't blush, but when hanging the ribbon, he suddenly said, "You took 99 steps towards me. I have to take the last step." Actually, that's not true. Jiang Pei took the first step too. He took that extremely important first step, which led to our current happy ending. When we were about to leave, a monk in the temple stopped Jiang Pei, saying that the abbot wanted to talk to him. I waited outside the room. It would be a lie to say I wasn't worried. After all, after the abbot stopped me last time, things didn't go so well. But then I thought, it didn't matter. No matter what hardships came our way, we were going to be together. When Jiang Pei came out, his expression didn't change. On the way down the mountain, I asked him, "What did the abbot say to you?" Jiang Pei paused, then replied honestly, "I forgot. He talked a lot in classical Chinese, and I didn't understand, but I did understand the last sentence." "What was it?" "He congratulated me on finally coming through all the hardships." The story that followed could indeed be described as after suffering comes happiness. During his freshman year, Jiang Pei registered an account on a certain video sharing platform and became one of the first music bloggers. He didn't show his face, but with his original songs, he easily became a top recommended blogger on the platform. Then, when netizens suspected that he might not be good looking, he participated in a talent show and debuted first by a huge margin. Hee, the thoughts of a 30-year-old man. He's quite good at playing hard to get. Of course, his biological father still had the nerve to come and ask him for money in this life, but a long time ago, the last bit of their relationship was severed by his father's own actions. Jiang Pei didn't give him a single cent, so his father went online to complain and appeared on TV shows, severely criticizing Jiang Pei for not recognizing his own father on the shows. Then Jiang Pei sued him in court for abandonment, extortion, and slander. Each charge was enough to send him to prison for a while, and when it came to using the internet, how could he possibly compare to Jiang Pei, who had been in the entertainment industry for 8 or 9 years? In the end, he ended up ruined and had to serve an 8-year prison sentence. As for me, I just remained an ordinary college student, but because I had already learned all the knowledge, I ranked first in my major in every exam. Then my supervisor invited me to participate in research and write SCI papers. When I got busy, I could go a whole day without replying to Jiang Pei's messages. The consequence of often not checking my phone was that I learned about my boyfriend's rumored romances from the casual conversations of my junior female classmates. Jiang Pei had declared from the beginning that he wasn't single, but he had never revealed any information about me, so it was reasonable that netizens paired him up with others. While I was still browsing Weibo to catch up on the so-called gossip, my father suddenly called. As soon as I answered, I heard him angrily say, "Is the news about Jiang Pei on the internet true?" I even regarded him as my future son-in-law. I was nice to him the last time he sent you home. I found it funny and deliberately asked, "When did you start regarding him as your son-in-law? Didn't you think he would affect me before?" This time, it was my father's turn to stutter and be at a loss for words. "The news is fake," I laughed. "If I didn't have this much confidence, I might as well break up with Jiang Pei." Sure enough, that night, Jiang Pei posted on Weibo, "I have a girlfriend. I've liked her for many years," as shown in the picture. The picture was of 2 1-yuan coins. For a time, there were all kinds of speculations, so he added a comment, "Her study and work require a quiet environment, and I don't want anyone to disturb her." When I saw this comment, my head was resting on Jiang Pei's shoulder. He took a 3-hour high-speed train to my city, just to snuggle up with me on the sofa and watch a movie. The story on the screen was coming to an end. The protagonists hugged each other and then kissed passionately. I was watching intently, but Jiang Pei raised his hand and covered my eyes. "What are you doing? Don't look at improper things." Just as I was about to mock him for pretending to be innocent at his age, I felt a soft and moist touch on my lips, along with the warm breath exhaled by Jiang Pei. I don't know how long the kiss lasted. It lasted until my whole body started to heat up and I let out a whimper. then Jianpei finally let me go, Wang Yuan, he smiled, his voice hoarse and sexy, but there were tears in his eyes. I love you. The song Jianpei wrote for me was never released. When I asked him why after we got married, Jianpei's face turned red, which was a rare sight, because it's a song exclusively for you, because it's a memory exclusive to us. Epilogue, virtual. When did Jianpei realize that his condition had become more severe? It was when he saw Wang Yuan. He had originally thought that he was just severely depressed, but that was still manageable. After taking his medication, he could constrainedly fall asleep, albeit in a groggy state, unable to distinguish between reality and dreams, but after waking up from a dream one day, he was sweating. As soon as he got out of bed, he suddenly heard a noise coming from the living room. When he went over to check, the sight of someone's back made his heart skip a beat. Time seemed to stand still at that moment. Wang Yuan was wearing the white shirt she used to wear most often in high school, with her back to him, while Jianpei was still in a daze. Wang Yuan turned around and saw him. Desk, mate, she called him slowly, smiling. Jianpei understood almost immediately that this was just his imagination. Wang Yuan would never smile at him like that. The doctor's words echoed in his ears. This illness may cause symptoms of auditory and visual hallucinations later on, and that's when it gets really serious. He seemed to know everything, but he still couldn't help approaching her. Jianpei, Wang Yuan looked up at him, her tone more cheerful than he had ever heard. Long time no see. This was the person he had been thinking about for so long. The one he softly called out to every late night when he couldn't fall asleep. This was the fabricated, virtual Wang Yuan. Jianpei tugged at the corners of his mouth, but warm tears escaped from his eyes. Long time no see, Wang Yuan. So what if it was virtual? He might as well consider it a lucid dream. It was his deepest, most hidden secret. Are you feeling unwell anywhere recently? No, I reserved the first seat for the concert as you asked, but I didn't see your friend come. Why? She came. She was here. I saw her. Maybe she left in a hurry. It was another rainy day with heavy downpours. Jianpei sat by the floor-to-ceiling window, with Wang Yuan beside him. The thunder outside was so loud that it made his head spin. Wang Yuan, he called her softly. I'm here. Jianpei turned to look at her. He must have been out of his mind because he slowly leaned towards Wang Yuan. Just this once, let him cross the line. But when his lips were just 1 centimeter away from hers, he stopped. He lost his courage once again. What's wrong? Her voice reached his ears. It even seemed like he could feel her warm breath, which was too real. He was silent for a moment, and finally smiled. It's nothing. What was Wang Yuan to him? She was the intimacy he had never had and couldn't grasp. She was the virtual presence who accompanied him day and night yet remained out of reach. In the end, his manager noticed something was wrong. His schedule was forcibly interrupted. And he was confined to his home. He had to receive treatment from a doctor every day and take countless capsules. Wang Yuan also disappeared. His heart felt empty in an instant, and the virtual dream finally shattered. He suddenly felt regretful. He should have been braver. If he had been braver, he could have kissed Wang Yuan. If he had been a little braver, would everything not have been just a virtual dream, a foolish dream? Jianpei had a dream that lasted a very long time. So long that he felt as if he had lived his life all over again, so long that he could no longer tell the difference between reality and the void. In fact, he didn't want to wake up at all. He vaguely remembered what he had done before falling into a deep sleep. He must have had an episode. In front of him appeared a black sea, as dark as ink, where anything that entered would be swallowed up. He was no exception. At that moment, he suddenly felt tired. It was hard to explain. Maybe he also felt a sense of relief. Anyway, he couldn't hold on to anything he wanted to. In a trance, he suddenly thought of Wang Yuan, the little stutterer, also a fool, the big bad guy who hadn't contacted him for years and had left him behind, but also the star he had yearned for until the very last moment. He struggled to get to the computer, calmly set a time, and sent an email to Wang Yuan. Then, exhausted, he collapsed to the floor. It was the last step he had mustered the courage to take. After a long time, he involuntarily got up, took his sedatives, and popped them into his mouth one by one like candies. When sleepiness overcame him, he became a little more sober. His hand struggled to reach for the water on the table, but he ended up knocking over the glass and cutting his hand. Scarlet blood dripped onto the floor, and it seemed as if something had broken. Bang! In a daze, he seemed to have returned to the time when he first met Wang Yuan in senior high school. But this time, Wang Yuan seemed different. She no longer seemed as silent and shy as in his memory. She would take the initiative to talk to him, stutteringly introduce herself, and loudly say okay when the old teacher asked her to explain problems to him. She had also become much bolder, daring to look straight at him and even saying that he was good-looking. It must be a dream. It had to be a dream, yet, he was greedy. Everything felt too real, making it impossible for him to tell whether it was reality or a dream. He heard someone's heartbeat, pounding loudly in his ears. He could clearly see the texture of her lips and smell the faint fragrance on her. Wang Yuan even took the initiative to grab his hand and hold it tightly in hers. Jiang Pei, her voice was clear. I'm here, I'm right here, by his side. The sea lost its color. His world was no longer a silent darkness. When his consciousness was on the verge of drowning, a voice asked him, do you want to wake up? Should he wake up? Jiang Pei thought, he might as well just keep sleeping. Even if it was a dream, he would accept it. He simply couldn't bear a world without Wang Yuan. Worst case scenario. It was just a foolish dream. Worst case scenario. He would just sleep forever. The long season. The winter in City Z suddenly felt extremely long to Fuqing. On the day of the first snowfall, Fuqing got off work early, which was a rare occurrence. Then he went to the flower shop downstairs and bought a new bouquet of lily of the valley. He only ever bought lily of the valley, to the extent that whenever the shop assistants saw him, they would directly say, today's lily of the valley is also very fresh. Another bouquet. He nodded slightly, but this time he added, please wrap it nicely. The shop assistant smiled. Are you giving these to someone this time? After all, he had never requested special packaging before. Fuqing was taken aback for a moment, and finally just nodded. In fact, he had always been giving the flowers to someone. With the flowers in hand, Fuqing went straight to the hospital. As the new year approached, the hospital was quiet and deserted. The young nurse at the front desk already knew him well. After greeting him, she let him go to Wang Yuan's ward. He opened the door of the ward and immediately saw Wang Yuan lying on the bed, as if she were asleep. After placing the flowers by her bedside, Fuqing sat down. Wang Yuan seemed to have lost even more weight compared to the last time he visited. She was already a small, framed person, and now she looked even tinier. Fuqing looked at her quietly for a long time. The doctor had already told him that the chance of Wang Yuan waking up was slim, because upon observation, it seemed that she simply had no motivation to wake up and return to the real world. To be honest, he didn't understand. He didn't understand why Wang Yuan, who had always been silent and timid, chose to act bravely when she happened to see a high school student attempting to jump into the river a year ago. Judging from the surveillance footage, she didn't hesitate at all. She followed the person and plunged into the icy river. She saved the person, but she herself hadn't woken up yet due to staying in the water for too long. Why? Was it because she couldn't bear to see someone so young lose their life? Or was it because the person's back resembled someone else's? He still remembered that when he rushed to the hospital, Wang Yuan's parents were crying uncontrollably, and her mother almost fainted in the hospital corridor. Did she really not consider the consequences of doing this at all? Fuqing unconsciously clenched his fists, and a sour feeling welled up in his throat. Wang Yuan had approached him on her own initiative after Jiang Pei's death. In the consultation room, she kept her head down, with red-rimmed eyes. Recently, I can't sleep at all through the night. Every time I close my eyes, I feel like crying. Finally, she looked up and asked him, Fuqing, am I sick? Wang Yuan played the last email Jiang Pei sent to her for him. After the audio ended, he could no longer remain calm. Wang Yuan, he's such a coward. All these years, he had countless opportunities to send you this. Why did he have to do it now? Why did he send Wang Yuan this email? Why make the living bear such guilt? Jiang Pei was clearly a scumbag, but Wang Yuan unexpectedly calmed down. Yes, he's a coward. A few days ago, a lawyer came to me and gave me a large sum of money, saying it was a voluntary gift from Jiang Pei. Do you remember that I received a lot of gifts on my birthdays during college? It turns out he was the one who sent them. But I always sent them back untouched. Yes, what he did, to put it bluntly, was self-indulgent. In the end, tears welled up in Wang Yuan's eyes. But the problem is, I like him too. Ding. Wang Yuan herself had revealed the root of all the problems. Because they liked each other. That's why the pain was suffocating. Even Fuqing's heart ached sharply. Finally, in a daze, he asked her, did it start from high school? I took several days off and stayed at home. He only Fuqing. I'm a coward too, this was the last thing Ruan Yuan said to him. Cowards. Fu Cheng's gaze shifted to the flowers on the bedside. Lily of the valley. Ruan Yuan wasn't particularly interested in flowers, but she loved this one the most, because its flower language was returning happiness. It was still snowing outside the window, and the snow was falling even more heavily. The dense snowflakes seemed to want to bury the whole world. Fu Cheng took a deep breath. They were all cowards. And no one could blame the others, but this winter was just too long. He had never seen such a long season.